People are like, oh, it's June. All right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this June meeting of the Joint Interim Standing Committee on Education. I'm Senator Angie Taylor and have the distinct honor of running this meeting. So let's begin with our roll call. If you would, Miss Rowe. Thank you.
Senator Don Daralou,
Here.
Senator Rogich, Assemblymember Hanson, Assemblymember Hardy, Assemblymember Hunt,
Here.
Assemblymember LaRue Hatch,
Here.
Vice Chair Torres Fawcett,
Here.
and Chair Taylor.
Good morning. Excuse me. Thank you so much. And sorry that was not Miss Rowe, but we appreciate it from down south. Let's see if we have any members who are absent as they come in. Please mark them present as they arrive. And if anyone is absent, excused, that would be Assembly Member Hanson is absent, excused. So we'll go forward from here. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items. Make sure you please silence your electronic devices. When you come forward to testify, make sure the microphone is on and clearly state your name and affiliation if you have one for the record. And if you have a complicated name, you know who you are, then please make sure you spell that for our note takers. We will take public comment twice during the meeting on today, once at the beginning of the meeting and once at the end of the meeting. Let me give you that phone number for public comment. It is on my materials somewhere. I just can't seem to find it. God bless you. It is, wait. Oh, right here, second page. There we go. All right, public comment number, beginning of the meeting or end of the meeting. Thank you, Angie. 888-475-4499. And then when you're asked to give the meeting ID, that meeting ID for today is 849-6829-0396, and then press the pound key. And then you'll receive your instructions from there. We can get a public comment live here in Carson City or there in Las Vegas. I do see a few comments there, and then also by phone, and I just read that number. Then also you can send in some written comments via the committee email or hand a hard copy to staff, and then we'll make sure that all committee members are here. If you have not signed up and you would like to get notifications of our meeting agendas and so on, please make sure you do that. And then also finally, committee members will be using our electronic devices. Please do not take that as a show of inattention. We have meeting notes, agendas, and so on before us that we use as we follow along in the meeting. Okay, now we'll go to our first public comment period, and we already have a volunteer. So please come forward. Your comments are limited to 2 minutes. And again, if you'd like to phone in, this is the time to do that. I see someone here in Carson and someone in Las Vegas, a couple in Las Vegas. We're going to start right here in Carson. Please, sir, you know the routine. Please state your name for the record. Mr. Superintendent, thank you for being here.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. My name is AJ Fueling. I am superintendent for Carson City School District. I'm also the incoming president for the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, representing all 17 districts in the state, as well as the State Public Charter Authority. Today, I'm here just to make you aware, and I will provide this document for record. NAS has developed its Invest document each legislative session. NAS gets together and talks about what are the priorities going into the session. And this is our one-pager kind of outlining those priorities. This is, I think, like the 20th year that we provided this document. So it's nothing new to veteran legislators. The four major priorities we're looking at this session. Number one, looking to increase and align education funding to ensure that resources match student needs. There are sub-points to this, but there's some concern about stabilizing budgets, stabilizing some of the funding resources. Some of them have become a little volatile, and so that would be extremely helpful to districts, along with a couple other items. Number 2, refine SB 460 from the 2025 session to more effectively and positively impact school district operations and student success. Number 3 is strengthen early literacy supports without harmful student retention requirements. That's around some of the changes that have come to Read by 3. We often hear about what has happened in Mississippi with the retention programs that they have had, and I think the argument is that there is much more to what happened in Mississippi than just retaining kids, including additional funding. For number 4, stabilizing, aligning, and expanding pre-K funding structures. This is not something new being brought to the legislature, but we all feel like there's a lot more we can do with pre-K, and it can provide a lot more to benefit our students and benefit our schools and their outcomes. So thank you for the time this morning. I will leave this document here, and just looking forward to all of your work, and thank you for that in this coming session.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. You're going to leave that with our committee secretary, then we can all get that. Thank you so much. Okay, seeing no one else here in Carson City, we will go to Las Vegas, where we have a full table. So please do paper, rock, scissors, or whatever you like to decide who will go first, and we'll go from there. And please, just as a reminder, state your name, spell your last name for the record, and say your affiliation if you have one, and you'll have 2 minutes. Thank you for being here. Who's first?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Daly, DALY, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for 125 years. Today, we have Guy Hobbs here to talk about recommendations from the Commission on School Funding. And you've certainly heard NSCA talk about how it's time to seriously pass the plan. Essentially, this is about building the capacity of Nevada's public education system to meet the expectations placed upon it. While many districts are currently navigating flat funding, increasing costs, declining enrollment, and staffing reductions, Nevada's long-term challenge remains sustaining the educator workforce and support system students need to succeed. To that end, NSCA recently submitted 4 recommendations for this committee's consideration: a paid student teaching program to reduce financial barriers for aspiring educators and strengthen Nevada's educator pipeline, self-contained special education staffing to establish minimum staffing standards and workforce supports for classrooms serving students with the most intensive needs, student assault, injury, and property damage protection to ensure educators and education support professionals do not suffer financial hardship because they were injured on the job, and Nevada special education onboarding and support to provide structured onboarding, mentorship, and professional learning opportunities for special education teachers and paraprofessionals. Finally, NSCA and the Education Support Employees Association jointly submitted a proposal to streamline the administration of SOT elections for education support professional representatives and clarify their responsibilities. These proposals are different in scope, but they share a common purpose: supporting the educators and education support professionals Nevada students depend on every day. We appreciate this committee's willingness to consider these recommendations and look forward to working with you throughout the interim as we continue the work to build the capacity of Nevada's public education system. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daly. Please go right ahead.
Good morning. My name is Misty Olmos, O-L-M-O-S. I am the chair of the Special Education Committee for the Nevada State Education Association and an officer with the ESCA, which is Educational Support Association, which is, which represents the support professionals in Clark County School District. And I am proudly served as a para-educator for Clark County School District for the last 20 years. I am here today to speak in support of the NSCA submitted BDR request. Most importantly, to establish adequate staffing in self-contained classrooms. In my 20 years as a para-educator, I can say with certainty that we are not working under the same conditions we once were. Students' needs, especially behavioral needs, have significantly increased. CCSD has doubled its autism and STAR programs, yet many of these classrooms are staffed with only one special education assistant. When the assistant must support a student's IEP minutes in a general education setting, attend trainings, or assist with personal care, the teacher is left alone with the class. When the assistant takes legally required breaks, teachers are again left without support. This is unsafe, unsustainable, and does not meet students' needs. Students and staff safety must be top priority. In behavioral-focused classrooms, inadequate staffing increase the risk of escalations, injuries, and crisis. Providing appropriate trained support will reduce incidents where students and staff are injured on the job. Prevention is safer, more effective, and far less costly than reacting after someone gets hurt. When help is called, staff from other duties, often without special education training, are pulled to simply be bodies. But our students do not need bodies. They need trained professionals. Adequate staffing reduces behavior incidents, support IEP compliance, and allows instructions to continue through small group learning. These challenges are not unique to CCSD. They exist across the state of Nevada. In rural districts, student teachers are often placed in self-contained classroom education without support.
Miss Almost,
New education-
Miss Almost, I'm so sorry. Your 2 minutes are up, ma'am. So if you would just, you can get a time for a moment to wrap the comments up, and then if you have others
Okay.
in written, please make sure you give it to staff down there, and she'll make sure we get them, or he'll make sure, whomever we have down there.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's okay.
Currently, CCSD currently has 240 SPTA positions that are vacant. These positions can be filled with staff when staff are supported, not burned out, injured, or assaulted. So we ask that we increase the staff in our self-contained classrooms.
Thank you,
so
Miss
much.
Almost. Thank you so much. Please go right ahead. Who's next?
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Jan, Jan Giles, Giles. I am the president of the Education Support Employees Association, representing education support professionals in CCSD, and I am here today to speak on 2 issues affecting ESPs in CCSD and other Nevada schools. First, I would like to address NRS 388G.720, which requires employee organizations to administer the elections for education support professional representatives serving on the school organization teams, or SOTs. While SOTs play an important role in school governance, SOT representatives serve their schools, not their employee organizations. Requiring employee organizations to administer these elections creates an unnecessary administrative burden and can blur the distinction between school governance and collective bargaining. I respectfully request the legislature to consider allowing schools, districts, or another designated entity to administer SOT elections for ESPs while preserving employee representation. Second, I would like to address the growing issue of employee injuries in our schools. ESPs work directly with students every day, often in situations involving significant behavior, emotional, and physically challenged. During the current CCSD fiscal year, 4,127 employee injury reports were submitted, and 1,582 workers' compensation claims requiring medical treatment were filed. These numbers demonstrate that workplace injuries in our schools are not an isolated event. They are occurring on an alarming rate. Nevada must do more to support employees who are injured while protecting and serving our students. I encourage policymakers to sponsor BDRs for stronger protections, improved leave provisions, and additional resources for employees recovering from workplace injuries not covered by workers' compensation. Supporting the employees who keep our schools running is not only the right thing to do, it is essential to recruitment and retaining the dedicated workforce our students depend on.
Thank you, Ms. Giles.
Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you coming forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. Please go right ahead. Go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Good morning. My name is Michael English, and I am a special education teacher assigned to 5 Title I schools. At a meeting here on May 26, Superintendent Ebert immediately approached me, shook my hand, looked me in the eye with a smile, and assured me that my arbitrary exclusion from the AB 398 retention differential was being resolved in my favor. That promise is the only reason I chose to leave and not give my public comment that day. However, a week later, she had HR email me a formal denial of these funds. It sure feels like I was intentionally pacified to keep me off the record. When I pressed for an explanation, HR claimed the district and union had agreed to an unwritten eligibility standard that explicitly strips away the protections of our ratified contract. On June 5th, I emailed 3 direct questions to district and union leadership. I asked how identical job codes are being paid unevenly and by what legal authority an unwritten handshake can override a public contract. Neither the district nor the union replied back. Their silence is an admission. If they answered honestly, they'd have to admit they are violating the law of a contract, and the union would have to admit they are actively blocking and not supporting dues-paying members who are clearly eligible for this state funding. I can't tell you exactly who the bad actor is here. Maybe it's CCSD, maybe it's CCEA, or maybe it's both. All I have learned is that you cannot trust your union, you cannot trust what is written in a contract, and you cannot even trust a direct assurance from the superintendent. This is so much bigger than my personal $5,000. This is about preventing these institutions from rewriting contract terms behind closed doors to harm teachers whenever they feel like it. Please review the written testimony I submitted on your website as it goes into much greater detail, and please contact me directly so I can explain how deep this goes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. English. Please go right ahead, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Anna Binder, B-I-N-D-E-R. I want to briefly speak in support of the proposed BDR submitted by NSEA and ESEA. As the parent of a child in a self-contained classroom, I view these recommendations through both a workforce and student outcome lens. At its core, the question is whether Nevada has the staff needed to safely and effectively implement IEPs and provide students with the educational opportunities they are entitled to receive. My son attends a classroom serving students with significant support needs with co-occurring low IQ. Like many programs across Nevada, staffing is often stretched thin. When students attend special, staff provide support in other settings or competing demands arise during the school day. Those limitations become clear. Adequate staffing is about more than filling vacancies. It is about ensuring students with significant disabilities can access the same educational opportunities we want for every child. One goal we discuss every year is increasing my son's time in gen ed to be alongside his peers, because inclusion matters. It supports social communication, independence, and meaningful relationships. Yet almost every single year, we have to bring him back into the self-contained classroom. This past year, he was only receiving about 10 minutes in his general education setting. That is why this conversation extends beyond staffing ratios. We should be asking how Nevada will expand access to general education opportunities while maintaining safe, appropriately supported classrooms. We should also ask whether schools have enough trained staff to meet student needs without diverting resources from other students or classrooms. I also appreciate the recommendation to protect employees who experience documented student assaults. Staff safety matters. Educators and support professionals deserve safe workplaces. And I encourage this committee to retain data collection and reporting components of that proposal, as it can help identify staffing shortages, training needs, and systemic factors contributing to workplace incidents. Workforce stability, student safety, and educational outcomes are closely connected. And if we want students with disabilities to have meaningful access to their education, this is how we make that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Binder. Please, ma'am, go right ahead. And if there's anyone else in Las Vegas who would like to make public comment, please come forward at this time. Please, ma'am, go right ahead.
Good morning. My name is Mary Clark, and I'm a certified teacher librarian at Manch Elementary School, which is a designated high vacancy Title I campus in Clark County School District. I'm here today because CCSD and CCEA have reinterpreted the criteria for qualifying for the retention funds from AB 398 by using arbitrary unwritten rules, and that decision has caused them to withhold the retention funds from specialists like myself. And I feel that we are some of the very educators holding high vacancy schools together. The text of our contract does not say only core classroom teachers qualify. It applies to the licensed educators at these struggling campuses who spend the majority of their duties teaching students. This past year, due to severe staffing shortages, 200 of my 250 minutes of weekly prep time had to be bought out just so I could cover classes. Because of this vacancy crisis, the specialists at Manch actually had more direct student contact time than regular classroom teachers did. Every single week, I teach every grade level for 50-minute blocks. My library is a classroom. I develop rigorous curriculum mapped directly to state standards from K2 language arts to 5th grade social studies, complete with pre and post testing to track academic progress. Students spend only minutes checking out books. The vast majority of their time in my library is spent in direct instructional setting. The ultimate irony is that the state and the district officially classified my position as hard to fill critical needs position for next year, while my co-teachers who received the benefit this year, they've all been designated as not high needs, critical need positions for next year. In fact, they have 62 extra ones, I believe, that they're having to RIF this year. So I urge the committee to look past the administration's technical excuses and audit how these high vacancy threshold funds are being distributed. Stop allowing the district to shortchange the frontline specialists who are keeping these schools afloat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Seeing no one else coming forward in Las Vegas, we will go to the phone line broadcast. Is there anyone who's phoned in would like to make special comment? Public comment?
Thank you, Chair. If you would like to provide public comment, please press *9 to take your place in the queue. Again, to provide public comment, please press *9 to take your place in the queue.
Good morning, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Andrea Kelly. I am the Nevada Education Support Professional of the Year, and I have proudly served Nevada's public schools for the past 16 years. I'm here today to ask for your support in protecting school employees from the loss of accrued leave when they are injured by a student while performing their duties. Every day, educators and education support professionals show up to support Nevada's students. We build relationships, provide care, and often work with students facing significant behavioral and emotional challenges. We do this because we care deeply about our students. However, when an employee is injured by a student, they should not be financially penalized for it. Under current law, if a school employee misses fewer than 5 days of work due to a student-inflicted injury, workers' compensation does not cover the lost time. That means employees must use their own sick leave, vacation leave, or personal leave to recover. If they have no leave available, they go without pay. This is simply not fair. An employee who is assaulted or injured while serving Nevada students should not lose benefits they have spent years earning. Those leave balances were intended for personal illness, family emergencies, and life's unexpected challenges, not workplace injuries caused by students. We're asking for a common sense solution. Protect employees from losing accrued sick leave, vacation leave, and personal leave when they are absent due to a documented student-inflicted injury. Supporting Nevada students should not come at the expense of the dedicated employees who serve them every day. I respectfully ask for your support in correcting this inequity and ensuring that school employees are treated fairly when they are injured in the line of duty. Thank you so much for your time and your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. ESP of the Year, congratulations. Who's next?
Hello, my name is Leora Tejas, L-E-O.
Please go ahead.
L-E-O-R-A. Hello?
Yes, please go ahead. I'm sorry. State your name one more time, please.
Okay. Sorry. My name is Leora Tejas, Leoratejas, and I am calling in support of BDRs presented by NSEA and ESEA. And this is for 2 special education paraprofessionals for each self-contained classroom, and as well as a floating special education paraprofessional for every school site. The purpose of this is so that the teachers can educate and not have to deal with behavioral problems, and this also provides a safe environment for the educators as well as the students. As someone that works in on a school site, when a teacher needs assistance or needs a break, they call other support staff that are actually not trained to be in those self-contained classrooms, and having a floating special education paraprofessional will assist in a safe and stable classroom. I also want to throw my support for the BDR presented by NSEA and ESEA to provide SBTAs that their accrued time off is not used in injuries during a classroom setting. I know an SBTA who was in the classroom, a student wanted her attention and pulled her thumb, and by doing so, dislocated it. And this SBTA had to use their own time. And what happens is, if you run out of your accrued time, you are put on no pay, no purse. So this can affect you financially as well when you sustain an injury in a classroom. I want to thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tejas. Do we have another caller?
Hello, my name is Christine Begay, B-E-G-A-Y. I'm a computer paraprofessional at Grass Valley Elementary School in Winnemucca. I'm also the president of our Humboldt County Support Staff Organization. Thank you for the opportunity to provide testimony about the need for comprehensive onboarding training for all school employees on supporting and educating students with complex learning and support needs or disabilities. I was part of the Early Leadership Institute team that worked on this as a LEAP project with NSEA. As someone who works directly with all students at our public school as a computer specials teacher, I have witnessed the growing needs of students with disabilities. These students interact daily not only with their SPED teachers, but also with gen ed teachers, paraprofessionals, office staff, transportation personnel, cafeteria workers, custodians, and administrators. Every employee plays a role in creating a safe, supportive, and inclusive environment. Unfortunately, many school employees receive little to no formal training on disability awareness, communication strategies, de-escalation techniques, accommodations, and inclusive practices. This lack of training can lead to inconsistent support, increased behavioral incidents, and missed opportunities for student success. I respectfully urge the committee to consider establishing a statewide training program to provide all school employees with the skills and knowledge needed to work with students with disabilities and COS students. Investing in professional development benefits not only the students, but the entire school community. When staff members feel confident and prepared, schools will have improved student outcomes, stronger relationships, increased safety, and greater employee satisfaction. We can create learning environments where students with disabilities have the opportunity to thrive academically, socially, and emotionally. Thank you for your consideration and your commitment to Nevada students.
Thank you, Ms. Begay. Do we have another caller?
If you've recently joined and would like to provide public comment, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Caller ending in 514, please press *6 to unmute yourself and begin.
Hi, my name is Dolly Rowan. I am a Clark County School District early childhood kids teacher for an autism unit. I retired and returned to work because I love my job, but what I don't like seeing is the continuous problem that we're having with the proper coverage for our students and staff. I need you to recognize that this is a serious safety issue throughout our state. I am also on an SEA Special Education Committee, and we have discussed this intensely. This is a terrible situation when we are left alone with our students. I myself am left alone with my students over a half day because I did inclusion and my assistant must go with them. This is not appropriate. We should never be left alone. Do you realize in every autism unit and STAR unit, when that assistant goes on their 45-minute break, that teacher, who is usually a sub, is left alone with those students. Every time that SPTA goes to take them to the restroom or takes them to transition to the nurse, that teacher is alone with those students. We should never be left alone with students. It's a safety issue for the staff and for the students. These kids sometimes are very, most of the time I must say, violent. They are in those programs for a reason, and we need to provide adequate supervision. We must have 2 SPTAs in every autism unit and STAR unit throughout the state, and we must also provide in every school that has self-contained programs a floater SPTA that can go to every unit and provide coverage when those SPTAs leave those teachers alone. Please listen to us. We need help. And this is a crisis. This isn't just one teacher. I'm speaking for all teachers across the state. Please provide the support that we need. Our students and staff are being hurt every day. You need to know this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rowan. Do we have any other callers?
Chair, we have no additional callers to provide public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you to all who came forward in person or via phone to share their thoughts and give some public comment. We do appreciate it, and we do pay attention and take notes. So, we're going to move on now to our next item on the agenda. It is the approval of the minutes from our meeting in April. So, do we have a motion for approval or any comments from committee members? Okay, no comments. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved from Vice Chair Torres.
Second from Senator Don Darrell Loop.
I was going to say, I picked your voice up, so we'll take the motion from our vice chair, second from Senator Don Darrell Loop. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, please indicate so by saying aye. I'm just going to assume they're ayes down south because I didn't hear any, so.
Yes, unanimous ayes down south.
Okay, thank you, Vice Chair. There's unanimous here as well, so there's no opposition. The motion is carried and the minutes are approved. Thank you, everybody. Okay, now we'll get on to our agenda, our actual presentation items on the agenda. We have several presentations that are required by statute from commissions that are working, and this is the first. This is a presentation on the findings and recommendations concerning the study of instruction relating to the Holocaust and other genocides for the Joint Interim Standing Committee for a review and consideration, and that's according again to statute. So please come. We see you before us. It's not Dr. Victor Wakefield. And it is not Elliot Malin, but I think he may be joining us remotely because he's about to travel. Okay, so instead of me guessing, let me just turn it over to you and to do your thing, introduce yourselves, and then I do see Mr. Malin. So please go right ahead, and we have this 15-minute presentation, so please go right ahead. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you. Yes, and Elliot Malin, can you hear us? Are you with us on Zoom?
Elliot Malin, for the record, I am, and I will be on as long as I can because my flight is about to board.
All right, thank you for joining us. Good morning, Chair Taylor and members of the committee, Deputy Superintendent Tori Palmer for the record. Today we are providing an update on the work of the subcommittee on the Holocaust and other genocides and sharing our current findings, priorities, and recommendations related to implementation of NRS 388-887. Genocide, or the deliberate attempt to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group through killing, persecution, forced displacement, or other acts to eliminate a people and their identity, is nothing short of horrific. Teaching our students about genocide in age-appropriate ways helps them understand the consequences of hatred, prejudice, dehumanization, and indifference. A major priority of the department, through Priority 1 Strong Foundations, and the charge of this committee is ensuring teachers and students are supported with instructional materials and strong Tier 1 instruction to not only teach about the Holocaust and other genocides, but to strengthen critical thinking, build a respect for human rights, and the importance of confronting discrimination and misinformation before they escalate into violence. With this, I will turn it over to Amanda Hughes, the department's social studies lead and chair of the committee, Mr. Elliot Malin, to share committee updates.
Good morning, Chair Taylor and members of the committee. Amanda Hughes for the record. Today, we are providing an update on the work of the subcommittee on Holocaust and other genocides and sharing our current findings, priorities, and recommendations related to the implementation of NRS 388.887. This mandate states that Nevada public schools provide instruction and professional development on the Holocaust and other genocides. The subcommittee serves in an advisory capacity and is responsible for the review of curriculum and standards alignment, classroom resources, professional learning, and the extent to which existing standards facilitate comprehensive instruction. Its function is to facilitate implementation by identifying resources, reviewing standards alignment, and recommending professional learning and implementation supports. In response to teacher and community feedback, the committee has increased its partnerships and support to create genocide-specific PL courses and materials. To address a lack of resources, we purchased and distributed over 1,000 intentionally selected books to 14 counties for grades K through 12. The titles include Hidden, Mouse, Night, The Good Braider, The Devil's Arithmetic, The Whispering Town, and Say Anything. The committee approved a formal 2-year strategic plan and recently established a dedicated working group consisting of volunteer members appointed by the chair to focus on standard alignment, instructional guidance, and resource review. The framework of this plan is provided in the full report Appendix D. The committee has identified 3 strategic priorities to guide its work for the next 2 years. The first priority focuses on standard alignment and instructional clarity. Throughout committee discussions, members repeatedly noted that while Nevada law requires instruction and professional learning on Holocaust and other genocides, it does not provide any guidance on the implementation. As a result, implementation varies significantly across districts. This includes grade levels, which courses include this content, the selection of material, method of instruction, and training that is provided to teachers. To address this challenge, the committee is exploring the development of guidance documents that would help educators of all grades and content areas identify appropriate grade band topics, standards connections, and appropriate instructional materials. Because this content is not only covered in social study courses, but also ELA, training and support should be provided to all of those teachers. The committee also recommends that Nevada participate in the expanded state-level NAAP civics assessments beginning in 2028. These assessments would provide valuable statewide data on students' civic knowledge, critical thinking skills, and understanding of democratic principles. Because Holocaust and genocide education is closely connected to civic literacy, combating misinformation, and understanding the responsibilities of citizenship, this data could help inform future instructional supports, professional learning priorities, and implementation efforts across the state. The second priority focuses on vetted instructional resources to include recommended novels and texts. Throughout our professional learning and committee discussions, educators consistently tell us that the challenge is not a lack of resources. Rather, support identifying which of those resources and materials are historically accurate, age-appropriate, standards-aligned, and easily incorporated into existing curriculum and pacing guides. To address this need, the committee plans to develop publicly available committee-reviewed resource lists organized by genocide topic and grade band. These resources would include a variety of primary sources, including survivor testimony, photographs, artwork, maps, literature, multimedia resources, and classroom-ready instructional materials that support historically accurate and developmentally appropriate instruction. This work is intended to help educators spend less time searching for and vetting resources and more time delivering high-quality, historically accurate instruction to students. Finally, it is recommended that the list of included genocides be reviewed based on available resources and legal definitions. The third priority focuses on professional learning as an implementation support. Participation data indicate that educator engagement is strongly influenced by district communication systems, local guidance, and awareness of both statutory requirements and available supports. Districts that provide clearer direction regarding Holocaust and genocide education generally demonstrate higher levels of participation and quality implementation. Moving forward, professional learning will shift from broad content delivery toward targeted implementation support. Efforts will focus on helping educators understand the statutory requirements, apply standards alignment guidance, identify and use vetted instructional resources, and implement age-appropriate, historically accurate instruction with confidence. Professional learning will also support educators in addressing sensitive topics such as anti-Semitism, genocide versus mass atrocities, human rights, and misinformation, while promoting critical thinking and civic literacy skills that align with Nevada's broader educational goals. It is recommended that additional supports be provided to districts to support teachers in participation of this learning. We've identified 4 key challenge areas. First, implementation varies considerably across Nevada because the statute generally identifies the broad areas that are to be taught, but not where, when, how, or with what materials it should be taught. As a result, districts and teachers have developed different approaches to meeting these requirements. Second, educator awareness remains uneven. Many teachers reported they were unaware of either the statutory requirement or the professional learning opportunities available to support implementation. District communication systems, platforms, and approval processes appear to play a role. Third, participation data reveals substantial regional disparities. Most participants in state-supported professional learning have come from a single county where local incentives and supports exist that are not available statewide. Participation from rural and northern Nevada districts remain limited. Finally, educators consistently report needing additional support to safely and effectively teach Holocaust and genocide. This includes identifying high-quality instructional resources that are historically accurate, age-appropriate, standards-aligned, and easily incorporated into existing curriculum, as well as building confidence in teaching sensitive topics such as genocide, anti-Semitism, and mass atrocities. As implementation efforts continue to evolve, the committee recommends dedicated implementation support, sustainable funding, expanded statewide communication and outreach, and ongoing monitoring of participation and implementation trends to support more consistent access and instruction across Nevada schools. We thank you for the opportunity to share our ongoing work with you and can now answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking to committee members, haven't seen a question as of yet, but I actually have something myself. I just want to you share your thoughts, or maybe perhaps Mr. Malin, on it. Sounds like a big piece of the issue is the educators aren't aware of the requirement. Additionally, there are resources that are available, but they aren't aware of where or how to access those resources. Am I reading this correctly?
That is correct. And additionally, there are actually a lot of resources. The Holocaust, National Holocaust Memorial Museum has lots of resources. However, teachers do not have the time to go through all of that to determine what's appropriate and aligned with their particular classroom. And in some cases, it's not a social studies teachers. In many cases, 8th grade ELA, they haven't received the background support in Holocaust, and so that content area.
Were you going to chime in, Mr. Malin, or is that your final boarding call?
Yes. No. I have a minute. Elliot Allen for the record. I appreciate it. I apologize again. I think one of the challenges that the Department of Education has identified and kind of touched on as well is that we don't have a lot of resources out there for historical genocides or some of the things that we listed as historical genocides within the statute. There are difficulties in bringing resources in, unfortunately. We only really have a lot of historical examples from the Holocaust. We have some stuff from Armenia, but it's proven to be very difficult. One thing I would like to mention, and again, I apologize for the overhang for the LAX, is we are the first state that's going to be receiving resources from the Srebrenica Genocide Memorial in Bosnia, and that's taken a lot of work to get to. So getting these out to the districts, getting these out to teachers has been a challenge, but we are working on it. And I'm really proud of the work the department has done.
Thank you, Mr. Mallon. We do have a question from Member LaRue Hatch.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you for presenting. I am a social studies teacher, and I would love to see these resources really getting to the classroom. And so I really appreciate that recognition, because I think a lot of people struggle, and I would like to see less boy in striped pajamas shown across the districts and more actual realistic Holocaust education. So I appreciate that. My question is, where does it say explicitly that we are supposed to teach Holocaust or Armenian genocide or Rwandan genocide in the standards? Because I think that is something that I've seen as a struggle. Some people think it's 8th grade, some people think it's 10th grade, and because there's not clarity, some kids get it twice and some kids get it not at all.
Amanda Hughes for the record. Great question. It is not. In the standards, it uses the word genocide, but it doesn't specifically state a genocide or the Holocaust. Those words are not in the actual social studies standards. They are in the mandate, and that's where some teachers have stated that they were not aware that these were the specifically listed genocides that were to be covered. So when you look at the standards, it might say, instruction on an understanding of genocides, but there is not anything specific. And that is one of the reasons for the support documents to link to the standards and show here is where this could be put in, here is where this is appropriate, and to provide that support to teachers so that, like you said, you're not hitting one multiple times or missing, others.
Thank you so much. And a brief follow-up. So 2 questions. One, is there work being done to explicitly put it in a standard somewhere? And 2, I know that all of the counties have scope and sequence. So even though the standards are broad and they're the foundation, I've done a lot of that curriculum work at the Washoe County level where they do explicitly say, here's what we expect in 8th grade, here's what we expect in 10th grade. What work is being done to ensure that those documents are explicitly saying when and where these genocides should be taught?
Amanda Hughes for the record. Great question. Thank you. So there are some districts, Washoe, one of them, Clark County, that have those specifically in their guidance documents or their scope and sequence. However, many of the smaller districts do not have those kind of documents. We have reached out to both Washoe and Clark to see if they would be willing to share what they have and work with the working group that we've established with the subcommittee to see if we can't provide a state level type of scope and sequence that teachers can use to have that support. Because like you said, some districts have that support, some districts do not.
Thank you, Assembly Member. Do we have any other questions from committee members? I don't see any, so I want to thank you for your work, for starters, and I'm excited that we're going to be one of the few, if not the only, getting materials right from overseas. That's going to be helpful for our educators. I do think it's not as much as this is something we don't want to teach, but it's when is it, where are the resources, how that, so any of those things, I mean, the work that your committee's doing, your commission's doing is really helpful, because we want to make it so that those educators can have it, they aren't sitting around with nothing to do, right, as we all know. So the easier we make it for them, the better, because this is important. It's important information for our students to get, whether it's 8th grade, 9th grade, wherever it is that schools decide to do it. So your work is really, really important. So we certainly thank you for it. And Mr. Mallon, thank you for, I know you're a critical piece of why we're getting those materials that will be helpful as well. So we appreciate your work. Good. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, we'll continue on the agenda. We have another commission report that is coming forward. at this time. Again, we appreciate those of you that are doing this important work. This is a presentation on the work of the recommendations and commission on the innovation and no, that's not this one. Wrong one. I jumped ahead. Senator Dondero Loop, don't freak out. I got you. Recommendations on the findings, presentation on the findings and recommendations on the commission on school funding. This is school funding, and so we know this commission does a lot of important work, pretty much year round. Maybe get a breather during the session, but a quick breather. This is for our committee, required by statute, but we look forward to hearing your report. So please go right ahead.
Thank you very much.
Oh, there he is.
Chair Taylor.
I was wondering where he was. Okay. Please go right ahead, Mr. Huffs.
Here I am.
Mm-hmm.
Here I am. And joining me in Carson City is Melissa Willis with the Nevada Department of Education. And we do have some slides to go through with you. And while those slides are being brought up, just give you a little bit of background. It might be repetitive because I've appeared before you in the past. But the Commission on School Funding was established several years ago to monitor the implementation of the Pupil-Centered Funding Plan. That's one of our primary missions. And over time, as things change, it's a very important function that the Commission has to make sure that the Pupil-Centered Funding Plan is operating the way that it was intended when it was passed by the legislature. And we also have a second core mission, which is to identify optimal funding for education in the state of Nevada and to make recommendations regarding how to fund up to that optimal level of education. So a lot of the things that we'll be talking about today are elements of the Pupil-Centered Funding Plan. We've been meeting for the last several months, and we've dealt with a litany of different items that have to do with the overall, again, operation of the Pupil-Centered Funding Plan. So a lot of it gets into the math underlying the way that the plan itself works. You're going to hear after me, and I'm pretty sure you didn't try to skip me on purpose, but you'll hear from the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education, and they deal with more of the programmatic side of the world and the accountability side of the world. And my colleague and friend Patty Charlton is here and will certainly be briefing you on that. Hers may be a little bit more exciting than my part, but I'd like to bring you up to date with respect to some of the recommendations that we've made. And you see on the slide that's in front of you, a lot of those recommendations fit into some general categories: adjusted base funding, weighted count funding, pupil-centered funding plan investments, and you can see some of the subtopics beneath that. And we'll go into some of these in a little bit more detail, not tremendous detail this morning, but just to acquaint you with some of the things that we've identified, we've discussed, deliberated, and made recommendations on. Now, all of this will culminate in a report from the Commission on School Funding that I believe is due in November. We'll begin working on that report in September to make sure that it's ready well in advance of your next legislative session. And the other thing that's new to the Commission on School Funding is we do have one BDR available to the Commission, and we're currently working on the content of that BDR, and I'd be happy to come back at a future meeting and certainly share all of that with you as well. Melissa, if we can go to the next slide. Something that we've been spending quite a bit of time on multiple meetings, enrollment count methodologies. Should the counts be taken the October preceding the year for which the appropriations are made? Should they be taken in April or March? All of those have been considered, evaluated, and analyzed. And the ultimate recommendation by the Commission is to maintain the quarterly average daily enrollment process, which essentially each quarter measures the enrollment, adjusts the amount of funding that goes to each of the districts by way of a true up at the end of each quarter. It was interesting to, at least me, to find out that of all of the quarterly enrollments during the course of a year, quarter number 2 is the highest and has traditionally been the highest. And there's variances from Q1 to Q2, Q3, and Q4. The objective is to try to get that right and ensure that the amount of funding that's being allocated to each of the districts is appropriate based on the enrollment counts that you have. And it's virtually impossible to have a current enrollment account, like a daily enrollment account that you're following because of the administrative headaches involved with something like that. So we felt that it would be best to stick with the current quarterly average daily enrollment counts. Hold harmless procedures. Hold harmless procedures. The existing methodology for that was if there was a 5% change in enrollment. And by the way, all of this has to do with the fact that we've seen enrollment drops around the state, well, around the country, but certainly around the state that have affected some districts more than others. And changing that enrollment drop threshold from 5% to 3% is something that we felt was worthy of making a recommendation to change. And that has to do with the amount of enrollment drop from the prior year to the current period. If it exceeded 5%, then certain things were put into place to hold the district harmless. And we've had some districts that have been affected more than others. And by lowering that threshold to 3%, we felt it would be more responsive to current conditions. Likewise, reducing the exceptional enrollment growth adjustment threshold to 15% and allowing for the addition of a new campus when adding a grade level. We felt that was more responsive to changing conditions as well. The Nevada Cost of Education Index. This is an adjustment to base funding that's based on the differences in purchase power between various counties within the state of Nevada. There are certainly differences in the costs associated with providing education support in a very rural county versus a highly urbanized county. And this particular statistic is intended to recognize those cost differentials and embed that into the formula. And we'll have another topic coming up in a moment or so that's similar to this one, but our feeling was it's worthwhile to have a cost of education index. It makes sense from an economic perspective to have that, but imposing it at the current time into the formula wouldn't make as much sense as when there were perhaps more funding available that would smooth out some of the differences that having a statistic like that might cause between and among districts. Next slide. Attendance area adjustments. We are making a recommendation that those be slightly modified. The attendance areas must be separated by more than 20 miles or a 30-minute drive during peak commute hours or extenuating circumstances. Before it was a bit more rigid, I believe at 20 miles and a 30-minute drive, not during peak driving conditions. And we felt this was something that was also worth modifying. Tiered allocations. This deals with transportation. And we were using a 4-year average to determine the amount of funding for transportation on a district by district basis, and felt that we should move to a 2-year average because of the changes in costs over time. If you're reaching back 4 years, you're obviously affecting that calculation more than if you're just doing a 2-year average. Next slide. Enrollment count methodologies. And this has to do with the weighted categories. And we recommend continuing to use an October 1 for the weighted count, the prior October 1 for the weighted counts. Well, the next topic, stacking of weights. This has been an interesting conversation, and I know it's something that a lot of people are interested in, particularly you folks. We have weights for English language learners. We have weights for at-risk. We have weights for gifted and talented. And to this point, if a student qualified as at-risk and English language learner, they would only get the higher of the 2 weights. They would not get both weights combined. And this is where it really comes into play more than any place else, would be the overlap between at-risk students and English language learners. And the commission felt, to sum up 2 or 3 meetings worth of discussions, the commission felt that that we should consider stacking the weights. However, adding weight 1 and weight 2 together without taking into account some redundancy between the programmatic elements that are provided for at-risk students and programmatic elements that are provided for English language learners, there should be some level of, for lack of a better term, discounting between discounting the second weight. So you're not adding the 2 in full amount together. And our ability to stack weights, while we all think this is the right course to take, is fully dependent upon available funding, because if we were to implement this right away, the additional funding required to fund the second weight that is brought in would come directly from the base funding for each student. And the more time that we have spent talking with the CFOs and administrators of districts, adequate base funding is extraordinarily important to all of them, because they use the base funding as more flexible funding to fill in where they may have some additional needs. And so to stack weights without attending to the base funding is something that we think should be put off until some point in time in the future, when there's adequate funding to do no harm to the base funding, but still realize the benefit of stacking the weights. Much like the NCEI, this is one that we felt very strongly was dependent upon available funding. And we will be making a recommendation that a trigger be built in both cases, that when the gap between where we are currently funded on a per pupil basis and what we're using as a proxy for optimal funding, which is the national average, when we get to 90% closure of that gap, we're recommending implementation of both the stacking of weights and the application of the NCEI. Hopefully that makes sense. That way you can make a commitment to moving forward with both of those programs, but do so at a time when you can best afford to do it without diminishing the base funding. Something else that we felt was very important was going back and reviewing some of the language around at-risk funding. And as most of you know, at-risk funding is, the at-risk student population is currently identified by grad score, taking the bottom quintile. And quintile, in our view, is a bit too rigid and is something that should be able to be flexed as information and circumstances change over time. And so our recommendation is to remove the word quintile and have that threshold set by the State Board of Education based upon certain information that's provided to the State Board of Education. Next. As you can see, we've been busy. The next, recommendations for investment. One of the items that really jumped out to us, particularly with these reductions in enrollments and the disparate impacts that occurred between different districts around the state because of those changes in enrollments. And by the way, a lot of that had to do with the ability of the individual districts to anticipate a reduction in enrollments and also administratively deal with the changes that would be brought about because of those reductions in enrollment. Not every district was able to do that to the same level. And so something we felt was extraordinarily important was through the Education Service Center, which you all put into place, I believe, at the last legislative session, that the Education Service Center also provides support to the districts around the state around these enrollment, budget planning, and administrative issues. We think that's extraordinarily important and could help to perhaps avoid, but at least mitigate some of the impacts caused by these sudden changes in things like enrollment. Further investment in Nevada Department of Education, centralized financial reporting, centralized database, of reported information we all felt is something that would be very important to continue to implement and strengthen over the next 3 to 5 years, and continued support of the multi-tiered systems of support. The commission is fully supportive of that. And as I'm saying all of this, the commission is still, we just met this past Friday. We have a robust agenda in July and August ahead of us. We have other mandates that were given to us by both, well, specifically by the legislature. We've discharged about 90% of those at this point, but we still have a couple big ones to deal with. Not the least of which is the funding issue. And I can share with you this morning that this past Friday, let me back up for a moment. Each time we go through this, something that's imperative for us to identify is where Nevada is currently and how that compares to the rest of the country on a student investment basis. And again, we use funding on a per pupil basis, and we compare Nevada to the rest of the United States. Those numbers we update each June, and we just did that this past week. And so I could share with you that currently Nevada sits at a funding level of $15,362 per pupil. And the national average is $19,025 per pupil. That difference is $3,663, or if you took where we are today in Nevada, it would require an additional 24% investment per student to achieve parity with the national average. So those are fairly new numbers. And one of the things that we always translate those numbers into is what that would cost the state over time to achieve that level of investment. And for those that remember SB 543, the commission was tasked with identifying methods of funding that would achieve that level of parity funding with the national average over the ensuing 10 years. And by the time we get to the 10th year, the number that we have focused on is $1.9 billion, which means 10 years from now, we would need to be appropriating 1.9 billion more than we are today to achieve parity. And that average is $190 million a year for each of the 10 years prior to getting to the 10th year of implementation. So one of the next topics we'll be dealing with both in July and August is with numbers like that, how could Nevada, what are the types of things Nevada could consider doing from a fiscal perspective to achieve that level of funding? And again, that's something I'd certainly be happy to report back to you. It'll be something that's contained in our report that we'll be filing this November. So with that, I think I've brought you up to date on what we've been doing over the last several months, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mr. Hobbs, thank you so much. And again, thank you to the commission, really playing a vital role as we look at education and how we continue to improve it. Certainly much work to do, so can't thank you enough for the time that you and your commission members put in to help inform us and make recommendations. We do have a few questions. We're going to start with Assemblymember LaRue Hatch. If you would, I know you have a couple of questions, so please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Chair. Thank you for your presentation today. So I do have two questions. The first one is just kind of an explainer. Could you go into a little bit more on the exceptional enrollment growth adjustment and how that works, how it is currently working, and how that would change under this proposal you guys have made?
Thank you. I'd be very happy to. Again, Guy Hobbs, this is one where I may need to phone a friend who's sitting right in front of you, Melissa Willis, to provide some additional detail and context, if you would, Melissa.
Of course, Guy. Melissa Willis for the record. The exceptional enrollment and growth adjustment is currently available for charter schools who have had and experienced large enrollment growths from school year to school year. So it is a process that they apply with their sponsor and then through NDE is approved if they've met the criteria. And typically, it is set at 25%. So typically, a new charter school might start with a K-3 or just middle school years, and as a new school year approaches, they'll roll the grade level up higher, add the grade level, and then backfill with the younger grade level. That kind of enrollment growth is really difficult to absorb, and so they'll petition through this application process to have their first payment through the PCFP, so their August 1st payment adjusted, rather than wait to report that additional enrollment at the end of quarter 1. So this change that the commission is recommending is to lower that to 15%. And then also if a school is adding a new campus or a new school or adding a new grade level, that would also meet the criteria rather than just the percentage enrollment growth.
Thank you, Ms. Willis, and thank you, Assembly Member, for I have a little follow-up, just so I can make sure I understand. Excuse me. So, Ms. Willis, if any school, but particularly, I know this is aimed toward charter schools, if they add a grade, a campus, or just have a tremendous amount of growth, because typically their payment is based upon the count that we do a little bit later in the year, right? And so if they can show that they've demonstrated a 15% growth is the recommendation now. Used to be a 25% growth, now it's a 15% growth. Then their first allotment, I guess if you will, would be increased based upon that new enrollment number, is that?
Melissa Willis, for the record, that is correct. That is, it will require legislative change, so it will be part of the either NDEs or the commission's BDR, but that is the goal.
Okay, just wanted to make sure I understood the recommendation. Thank you so much. Go ahead, Assembly Member, please continue. Thank you for that little interruption there too.
No, please, anytime. All right, my second question is about the quarterly count process. We have heard throughout interim from our superintendents, our school boards, our school districts directly, that quarterly count is not functional for them because their budgets are not quarterly, right? We hire teachers at the start of the year, and if we are losing funding, then we're potentially ripping away teachers from students in the middle of a quarter, or we're suddenly getting a new position that we now fill with a long-term sub, which is, to be honest, not that much better than not having it in the first place. And so I wondered if you could speak to why the commission thinks that process is still appropriate when we've heard from everyone else that it's not working.
Guy Hobbs, once again, Commission on School Funding, and I will offer what I can on that, having participated in those discussions, and certainly invite Melissa to augment, my comments with anything else that she may want to add. I would say initially when the commission took this up, we were hearing exactly what you were just talking about, that the quarterly counts are administratively difficult, that the truing up process at the end of each quarter was also administratively difficult. And there was a sentiment, at least early on with the commission, that moving to the prior October 1, or actually a March 1 count would be superior. The March 1 count, let me back up for a moment. The October count was favored by some early in the dialogue because that's the first day of the second quarter when the counts are generally higher. And that's a particularly important point. The October 1 count was favored by some because it was an actual known number from the prior year. So some favored that, at least early on in the discussions. And as we went through all of this, the working group that we had assigned to this, which included chief financial officers from some of the affected districts, thought about it and felt that maintaining the current system would provide a more accurate and up-to-date count than reverting to a prior year number. Now, Melissa, you may want to add something to that, but that was about a 3-month discussion on the part of the commission to consider every option and arrive back at the conclusion that the current might be more responsive to changing enrollment counts than switching to another methodology. Melissa?
Thank you, Guy Hobbs. Melissa Willis for the record. I would like to add that we did reach out and have 2 stakeholder working groups with CFOs and district representatives and charter school representatives to solicit their feedback on this process and discuss with them and share with them the solutions and challenges that the commission identified to get their input. And overall, the feedback was to stay with the quarterly approach for a few reasons. One, like you, we'd heard that stability in the adjusted base was of concern. So that's why this was taken under, or this was addressed. And then, but we also have to balance the thought that right now we're dealing with a declining enrollment situation that we wanted to provide some stability measures with, but also that we have charter schools that are still showing significant enrollment growth. And how do we provide a situation or a model that is adaptive to both needs, and being responsive to student counts in real time throughout the current year was deemed to be the most equitable overall for both types of situations. And that, if you will, there's some comfort in what we know. Anything that we would change with adjusted base is significant changes to our model. And to move from a quarterly base to something that was based on a yearly average count could provide some more stability, but it might also provide a lag in adjusting to those student enrollments. So that's why the commission moved to adjust the hold harmless provision to provide more stability in that funding. We will catch more districts and charter schools with declining enrollment with that change in hold harmless. We've been averaging about 2 per quarter. And then based on some modeling that we did with 2025 school year, that looks like it will hold between 7 and 8 districts or charter schools hold harmless as we move forward. So those showing significant declines in enrollment will be helped, and it will help them stabilize that funding throughout the year.
And thank you so much. And I would just say the number of superintendents and school board trustees that just texted me saying they disagreed, I would love to just maybe have you reach out to them, or hopefully we can hear from NAS or somebody else. I just want to make sure we are doing what is right on the ground for kids and what makes sense administratively. And so I look forward to hearing from them and hopefully further those discussions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Assembly Member, and thank you, Ms. Willis and Mr. Hobbs. We do have a couple of more members with questions. We'll go down south to Senator Rogich. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Hobbs, for your presentation. I have a question with regard to the recently conducted study by the Gibson Consulting Group. In that study, they indicated that CCSD is wasting up to $3 million in the first year and 3 million or 34 million the first year and 79 million annually within 5 years due to inefficient practices. So before receiving more funding, how will the existing severe waste be addressed?
Again, Guy Hobbs, Commission on School Funding. What may or may not be happening in any one of the districts, let me back up. The pupil-centered funding plan is something that's designed to aggregate different sources of funding at the state level and allocate those to each of the districts on a formulaic basis. And then from each of the districts down to each of the schools, it really is a matter of local administration more so than it is the pupil-centered funding plan formula for which we're responsible. Obviously, we would certainly encourage any and all districts to ensure that the funding that they're allocating to the schools and appropriating on behalf of all of the programs that they support be done in the most efficient manner possible. But something like that is beyond the scope of the Commission on School Funding. We're looking at, again, aggregate funding on a comparative basis to other states and the method by which that funding is moved from the state to the district to the individual schools.
But if there's an increase in the funding, I appreciate what you're saying, where is the accountability to ensure that the money's being properly spent on what the children need?
Again, Guy Hobbs, I would expect that any and all of you who are making decisions regarding funding, particularly if it might involve some fiscal reform at the state level, would want to ensure yourselves that there is a system of accountability in place that not only measures the efficiency of spending, which, you know, having been on both sides of that, having been a chief financial officer for a rather large entity, oftentimes whether or not funding is spent on an efficient or an inefficient basis may be in the eye of the beholder. Sometimes it's far more clear than that. But I would, you know, certainly suggest that having a system of accountability in place that provides you comfort that the investment of additional dollars into education will bring about the results that you intend if you make those decisions to make those investments.
Thank you. And Chair, I just have one more question, if I may.
Please go ahead.
Perhaps you could walk us through a little bit. Again, I'm going to refer to the study, and I understand what you're saying, that the role of the commission is with regard to the pupil funding, but you have such wonderful background with regard to budgeting, et cetera. And so the report criticized the district's lack of transparency and recommended the district move toward a strict performance-based budgeting framework. Is that something that would be possible from your perspective?
Without getting too far, again, Guy Hobbs, without getting too far out of my assigned lane with the commission, and having been responsible, but also having been responsible for rather large budgets over many, many years in this state, having improved internal controls is something that's always possible to do. Having budget systems that build the same kind of questions into them when the budgets are being put together as you, the legislature, would have if you're being asked to provide additional funding for education is something that can certainly happen. Now, personally, I'm not familiar with the report that you've referred to, and I'd be very interested to see it because, you know, frankly, those are the kinds of things I'm interested in seeing. But it speaks to my personality, I guess, but I would be very interested to see that. I don't think there is a large system out there, whether we're talking about the federal government or state agencies or local government agencies, that should be operating without a commitment to continuous improvement, you know, particularly in assuring the stakeholders and the taxpayers that the monies are being spent efficiently. That's something I think, you know, is one of the highest responsibilities that any of us have that deal with public funding, is making that assurance. So anything at all that could be done to improve that should be taken under consideration.
And thank you. And the Gibson Consulting Group was hired by CCSD, and they just recently released this study in June. So be happy to get that to you. They also were hired in 2011. So I'm interested in finding out why we have yet to improve since they have been hired twice over the past 15 years. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Rogers. We'll stay down south. Senator Dunn-Loop.
Thank you very much. And I just, with respect to the efficiency study, I think that we need to be very aware that this was just released and that the superintendent, who has been in her spot for a year, asked for this. And so it may have been done in 2011, but that person was not the superintendent, and certainly we have changed leadership many times. And so I think that what we need to do is be aware that they asked for this and that we will be seeing some changes. And I don't think when you ask for an efficiency study that I think that's a good thing. I think that you're looking for someone to help you make sure that you are being efficient with the public money. So I just wanted to put that on the record that there were many major recommendations within that study, you know, transportation and software management and all kinds of things. So it wasn't just a misuse of funds as much as how can we use funding more efficiently. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Senator Donjo-Loop. Vice Chair Torres Fawcett, I believe you have a question or two.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chair Hobbs. It's always good to see you. I was wondering if I could get some clarification on just what the requirements of the Commission on School Fundings report will be. I know that SB 460 had made a couple changes in what the Commission is required to look into for this upcoming biennium, and so I was just wondering if you could provide some more clarification on that.
Yeah, I'd be very happy to. Again, Guy Hobbs. We were asked, and now it's actually a number of different bills that create our project work list every interim, starting with SB 543 and most recently with 460, as you mentioned. And I believe, Melissa, I don't have the matrix in front of me, but I believe the number of topics that we were given as deliverables over this interim totaled up to be something like 18 or 19 different topics, some of which I reported on to you today. All of those will be a chapter, if you will, in the final report that we issue that we'll start working on in September and finally formally submit, I believe, the first part of November. The way we structure that report is because each one of those is such a diverse topic, we put the report together in chapter form to make each one of those sections liftable. So if someone is most interested in the stacking of weights issue, for example, they can go pull that section out of the report and it would be a standalone report on that alone. But each one of those will be accompanied by a recommendation from the Commission, which is then, it's a recommendation made to you all for consideration. As I mentioned too, you know, something new this go around is the Commission does have a BDR available to it, and we're currently working on the contents of that BDR. We've not previously had this ability, and most of the things that will be in the BDR are going to be specifically related to the functionality of the pupil-centered funding plan. Things like the stacking of weights or the, I think Melissa mentioned one a little bit earlier that would need to be included in the BDR if you're switching the EGA from 25 to 15%, for example. That's something that would have to be legislatively encoded. If we're removing the word quintile from the designation of the at-risk count, that's something that would have to be legislatively approved. So those are the types of things that will be included in our BDR. Our report almost 2 years ago was a brief one. It was 501 pages. And we also put out an executive summary for those that couldn't tolerate getting past, you know, page 59 of that report. And we'll be doing the same thing this year. Because some of the topics, particularly when you get into the mathematics behind computing the funding gap between where Nevada is on a per pupil basis and the national average, that takes some additional space and documentation to fully support. When you get into discussion of changes to the fiscal system to enable us to get to the national average over a 10-year period, you can imagine that that also requires a lot of analytical space in the report. So much of it will be taken up by that, but we look forward to getting that report to you and having additional dialogue about where we can be of additional support and help.
Thank you. I look forward to reading the report. I did last biennium as well, but it was definitely lengthy, but it did have a number of ideas that helped inform quite a bit of legislation too. So I'm excited to continue to work together on that. Is there anything that we expect to not be included in this report? So I know that the legislature gave, I think you said 18 different items. Is there anything that we expect to like request for delay on?
Not at this time, not that that didn't cross my mind. when we were putting together the work plan. But, items again, like the NCEI and the stacking of weights, by making a recommendation that we use a forward trigger to implement those, in my mind, that kind of fit into the category of pushing that off into the future, which is something that we would generally prefer not to do. But we didn't see a way of doing it without causing, sometimes solutions, if they're not fully thought through, create additional problems that may be unforeseen, at least initially, and we were trying to avoid that. But everything that you assigned us, we will be responding to.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I look forward to reading it.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And just for, I do have a couple of questions, but as I begin, just for the record, Ms. Willis just shared that there were actually 27 requests that came. You missed 9, Mr. Hobbs, but you were 2/3 of the way there. So we look forward to the, 600, 700 pages of the report that come and that will come and help us. We appreciate that work for all 27 of them. Thank you, Ms. Willis. I do have a couple of questions. First, let's go back a little bit to I thank you so much for sharing those comments on why our, North Star, for lack of a better, is what's the national average? It's like, what does it take just quote unquote, to get to the national average and the 1.9 billion? And I remember when the commission identified that number, several years ago. But since then, $1 billion went into the funding of schools. So I'm wondering if it's still 1.9 billion, or is that an inflationary adjustment? Just give me your take on that. What is that number that we're still looking for, and how did that billion, how was that taken into consideration?
Thank you very much for the question. Again, Guy Hobbs, the new numbers that came out this past week already include the effect of having made that additional investment. So the additional investment is required beyond the investment that's been made up to this point. And I would like to ask Melissa if she could make sure that we share with each of you a copy of our deck from this past Friday, where we did the quantification of the national average versus the Nevada level funding. I think that would be a good thing for each of you to have. So we would like to get that to you. But to answer your question, it has already taken into account the investment that was made, 2 or 3 years ago, and is now part of the budget and, impacting during this particular biennium.
Okay, thank you for that, Mr. Hobbs. My next question is pertaining to, and you mentioned this just a little bit ago, in terms of legislative, the requirements if quartile, right, is taken out of that. The recommendation, I believe, coming from the commission is going to be to really place that in the hands, if you will, of the State Board of Education to evaluate the student counts, and set that number periodically. And you mentioned in the presentation, Mr. Hobbs, that will be based upon information that they get, and then how they utilize that information. Can you give us an idea what information do you have in mind in terms of how will the State Board then, without that word quartile? I'm not disagreeing with that at all. I just want a little more information. What will they use to get there? What's the recommendation?
Thank you very much, because, part of Melissa correcting my 18 to 27, one of the things that's also included as a yet to be completed is what type of information shall be considered by the State Board of Education in making a finding that instead of being a quintile, which is 20%, it should be at 21% or 21.5%. I have a phone meeting later this week with 2 other members of the commission to go over specifically what you just asked about, the type of information that shall be considered in making such a finding. And that would include looking at the distribution of the data. One of the things that's come up as a concern is if you set the threshold at a hard and fast 20%, but you have a statistical cluster that's sitting at 21%, that's something you probably should take into consideration. If it's a normal distribution, then a fixed 20% probably isn't as impactful as if you have a cluster of students sitting at the 21% level. So, that would be one piece of information that we would suggest that the State Board of Education consider. And there's other information yet to be developed, but the recommendation will be that the State Board of Education periodically set that threshold, subject to a review of information, including, and then we'll be filling in the blanks in the coming days.
Understandable, thank you. And thank you for that correction from quartile to quintile. Important 5%, so thank you. Senator Dondero Loop, I believe you something you would like some clarification on for the committee.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Willis, I'm sorry to ask you this. I thought I heard it and then I questioned myself. You said when you were talking about percentages, you were talking about like the 25% and you backed up to 15%. Could you clarify that again?
Melissa Willis for the record. Currently, the exceptional growth adjustment is set at 25% for the application. The recommendation from the commission is to change that to 15.
So that it would just go back to you would like it to be the 15.
That is correct.
That was the
okay.
That was the recommendation.
Thank you very much. All right, I just wanted to make sure I understood that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Any further questions from committee members? It was good, robust question and answer session. And thank you so much, Mr. Hobbs and Ms. Willis, for being here and making the presentation. We do look forward to that report, and we will look forward to the BDR that will be forthcoming. Thank you so much.
If I could just simply make one more comment,
sure.
Chair Taylor.
Go ahead, Mr. Hobbs.
Our commission, the Commission on School Funding, in the next presentation that you're going to hear from the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education.
One moment, if we could just have all the mics turned off in the Nevada. Thank you.
I'm glad that wasn't me.
That was me. Thank you, Vice Chair. Sorry.
So, something that both of those commissions had in common, and I think probably the finest asset to both of those commissions, was the participation and presence of Senator Joyce Woodhouse. Senator Woodhouse served as the vice chair of my commission and served as the chair of the Commission on Innovation and Excellence, which made communication between the two groups a rather easy and seamless task. Not to mention all of the wealth of knowledge and experience she brought to our commission and to the Commission on Innovation and Excellence. And so I just wanted to mention that one of the things that we discussed at our last meeting is, a litmus test for a lot of the recommendations that we make on a going forward basis will also include a question that we ask ourselves: what would Joyce tell us? And if we can answer that, we'll feel a lot better about what we're doing. But I just simply wanted to acknowledge Joyce's role in creating these commissions and also serving on them, and express my gratitude to her for everything that she's done.
Thank you so much, Chair Hobbs. That's so appropriate. She's such an education advocate and champion. And we're all better for her having been here with us, that's for sure. Thank you. That's also a good segue to our next report from the Commission on the Innovation and Excellence in Education. That report, we're going to, as they come forward to set up and prepare, we're going to take a quick little, really necessary personal break and give them about 5 minutes to get set up, and then we'll go forward from there. So we'll have a really quick recess here now. Thanks, everybody. All right, everybody, thank you so much for that much needed break. We do want to continue on with our agenda, and we are on to our next report of a commission report. This is a report. This is a presentation on the findings and recommendations from the Commission on the Innovation and Excellence in Education, and I believe in front of us there in Las Vegas. We do have the chair and vice chair, Chair Charlton. Welcome, and Chair Parker. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And then I also serve as a member of that commission. And we appreciate you both for being here and going to share the findings and recommendations in this important work. Please go ahead when you are ready, Chair Charlton.
Thank you so much, Senator Taylor, and appreciate all of the members of the interim committee today for your time, for your work, for your dedication. I hope you can see the presentation before you. Up north? Oh, yes, I can see it now.
Yes, yes, we can.
Yes, I was cautioned that there may be a slight delay. But thank you so much again for your time and for those that are also serve as co-members on the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education. I just also want to give a huge shout of appreciation for Chair Guy Hobbs of the Commission on School Funding. I think his words were so appropriate to the value that we had of Senator Woodhouse and her years and decades of contribution to education in the state of Nevada. And on behalf of the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education, this was a passion of hers, and this was also a great deal of work going back about 8 years ago when she was involved in a report called the No Time to Lose report, which was actually supported by the National Conference of State Legislators. And so today we would like to share with you some objectives that we have as our Commission on Innovation and Excellence, the connection that we have with the Commission on School Funding, and the great collaboration and coordination, but not overlap between the two bodies. And again, want to thank Senator Woodhouse for her legacy, her dedication, and I can honestly say big shoes to fill as stepping in only for the last 5 days as the chair of this commission. And so just a little patience and grace is appreciated. And so today what we would like to share is again, the commission's progress, the progress that we have made in the 25 to 27 interim period, and then also preview some of the policy considerations and recommendations that will be included in our June 30th, 2026 report, but also provide some insight of the work that is ahead for us as we head into our next work session and year. So before you is just a highlight of the Commission's charge that was established under SB 425 in the 2023 legislature. And what we've really focused our time on, and I know that Vice Chair Parker and I have actually been members since the inception of the Commission. And one of the things that we spent a lot of time on early on was really looking at high-performing systems, not just in the United States, but globally. And how can we bring that to Nevada and to support all of our children and our students within our state? We also want to focus a little bit, or under this charge, on designing policy recommendations that will not just meet those high-performing systems, but let's exceed them. Let's be better than that. And then also to how we can strategically not just look at policy recommendations for today, but also focus on innovation and step out of the box and look towards the future of education in Nevada as well. And I'm definitely not going to read this slide for you, but this is our Commission on Innovation and Excellence statutory responsibilities, again, established under SB 425 from the 2023, but then also augmented under SB 460 in 2025. While that While there was some work that was provided, there has been some insight or additional factors, particularly for how we will capture metrics and measures. This work is a continued progression and building. We have established a vision and implementation plan that is called our roadmap, and the roadmap is moving into our road work, which we are doing, which is kind of quite telling in Nevada with every road under construction, but we are also building our framework and work. Our work continues on looking at the high performing systems. We do that not just where we started this commission, but an ongoing look, an ongoing reflection, what is working well, what of that great work that's being done, some of that is being done right here in Nevada. And we also focus each of our meetings on a bright spot of Nevada with an educator coming forward and sharing some of their insights and the great work that they are doing. And then ongoing will be our policy recommendations that are being provided through our work and our study. And again, reviewing data, reviewing our collaboration with the Commission on School Funding, the Department of Ed, and then also the Education Service Center with their report as well, focusing on reporting requirements and that new charge. And we are so excited and really appreciate one of our fellow commissioners, Steve Cannavaro, his work on the Education Service Center. And that report is just hot off the press. Can't wait to read all 39 pages, and brought it with me today as well. And so now I'd like to turn it to our vice chair to continue the presentation.
Good morning, esteemed legislators. My name is Sean Parker for the record. I'm excited to be here. And I just wanted to share a few things that we've been doing on the commission that I think some of you may know intimately, and just wanted to provide a brief overview and then jump into where we're headed. So again, as Chair Charlton noted, we have spent a lot of time looking at best practices globally and locally. We want to know what is working. And we've spent time looking abroad, Singapore, Finland, Estonia, but also out of the state, Massachusetts, Mississippi, Utah, trying to figure out what are the best world-class learning opportunities that kids have access to right now. And also not just where are they now, but where are they headed? Because all those systems that we talked about are putting in place future-focused approaches in their own system. We also brought in and worked with some pretty extraordinary people. We have our colleagues at the National Center for Education and the Economy who have been facilitating a lot of our learning. We also looked at work from America Succeeds, the Carnegie Foundation, and others to make sure that we are bringing in, again, the best in class research and people. And then, like Chair Charlton said, we also looked in. We did the outside look, but also the inside look, because so often we know that Nevada is special, we are unique, and we need to recognize what is happening in our own state. And so we studied and looked at what was happening across all 18 systems, 17 counties in the charter school system, as well as local schools, to make sure that we knew what was happening. And thank you for those who serve on this commission, because it's a really robust commission made up of educators, administrators, legislators, parents, business leaders, and so forth. And what we found were that there are themes that we had pockets of excellence in this community and in communities across Nevada. I think many of us know that the CTE programs in our communities can sometimes be signs of excellence and seen as beacons of excellence, winning national awards for how well they're doing, and families really appreciating them. We saw some robust work at the higher education level, and then we also saw a state level push on student-centered learning that we wanted to make sure that we were taking into account with the work that we were doing. We've also heard about many opportunities for stronger and more ambitious focus for the work. We know that we are not saying here that Nevada has made it and that's enough. We wouldn't be a commission if that were true. We wanted to figure out what was possible and how do we do that in a coherent and aligned way with all of the different systems at play. So again, Chair Charlton already hit on a lot of this. We have our road map and we're working on our road work. We've gathered feedback from so many different constituencies to make sure that it is going to be usable across Nevada. And we translated before the last session a lot of this into what ended up being in Senate Bill 403, which, while it garnered broad bipartisan support, did not end up ultimately passing. I think it was in that log jam towards the very end of the session. But many of the items in that bill did make its way into other bills. Some of the recommendations, including recommendations that took some work from the Commission on School Funding around accountability and moved that to our commission, did make its way into law. And so we'll be talking about that today because those are still important things that we are taking on. So lastly, here's some progress that we have made in the last year. We've collaborated extensively with those other bodies, the Commission on School Funding, We have worked with the new subcommittee on accountability redesign led by the Department of Education and collaborated with the Education Service Center, as Chair Charlton noted, with their efficiency report. We've increased alignment with several groups across the state who are key in making sure that whatever we create is implemented. And we began planning the use of funding appropriated by SB4 to make sure that what we are saying are our theories, our hypothesis around the future of education can be tested over this year to make sure that we are producing things that are backed, research-backed and evidence-based. And we've worked with our subcommittees. We have 3 subcommittees that we're going to be talking about today in this commission, and the recommendations or policy ideas that are coming out of those. Those 3 include the Measuring What Matters, the Next Gen Career Pathways, and World-Class Teaching and Learning.
Thank you. And so first, to start with our Measuring What Matters subcommittee, again, not to read the slide, but again, this has statutorily action that we need to be moving forward on. And this is being collaborated with the Department of Education and the Superintendent's Office to review those statutory required metrics, build a timeline, and project and do a project plan for policy recommendations related to that work to fulfill our responsibility by June 30th of 2027. We've collaborated again with the subcommittee on accountability redesign, and there's several members of the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education that also serve as a crossover and collaboration with that body. So through that work, they are contributing to the redesign of not just the district performance framework, but also the school performance framework. And again, we are working collectively with the Education Service Center to identify efficiencies, reduce burdensome reporting requirements, and then also we'll be considering policy recommendations that are still not fully developed or endorsed at this time.
So I'd love to share, Sean Parker for the record, I'd love to share some of those policy ideas and recommendations. First, I think there's this big question that has come up lately. I think in societal conversation in my personal life, in my professional life, maybe in your legislative life, one of which has been, what are we doing with AI? What is the role of AI? What's the role of AI in education? And one topic, for instance, that's come up a lot is AI literacy. Not necessarily just the use of AI, but are we preparing young people to be literate with the way in which it's being implemented? Some might consider that a skill, a technical skill, or a learned skill, maybe a potential new standard. Where does that fall in the standards as they currently exist? Should that be adopted? Should that be included? That is a broad question. Now, we're not necessarily here to answer that specific question, but one of the policy recommendations that we are looking at, again, not fully adopted in the commission yet, is to develop an agile governance framework for choosing and updating skills into the standards and curriculum. What is the current method for doing that, and what might be the future method for doing that? Maybe we need to work with industry to have a continuous industry sensing mechanism to understand how workforce is changing, to understand how the world is changing. Perhaps we need cross-sector collaboration, and maybe we just need to work better with our educators who are the experts in the field to figure out how do we update those standards. We've also thought about, on the right side of this slide, you'll see developing assessment pilots and measurement and reporting. We know that a lot of what we are planning is future looking and maybe not yet fully evidence and research based, although there is some research back the approach that we are taking. So a lot of our recommendations that will likely come out of this section is about creating the opportunity for Nevada to study what can be true in this system. Perhaps we need portfolio-based transcripts, because a lot of the work that we're doing is about building project-based learning, having young people actually showing their learning and demonstrating their learning in different ways. But if you switch from the current transcript, which is what we're not recommending, if you switch too soon without piloting these things, it would create confusion for parents, for students, for families, and for the educators who are in charge of implementing it. Further, something that could help, for example, is side-by-side reporting. Maybe you continue the reporting that currently exists and add some skill reporting to it. And we're also looking at competency-based preparation and assessment of teacher candidates. That is something that is coming out of our partners on or our members of the commission who are working in higher ed. They're also thinking about how do we prepare teachers in a new and innovative way. And lastly, one of the most recent recommendations that has been coming up is to create a more seamless longitudinal data system that we may ask that may be required for NSHE, the Nevada Department of Education, and school systems across Nevada to collaborate with DETR to make sure that the NPower system, NPWR, is utilized so we can actually track how students who go through our system, where they end up, what jobs they have, and whether the work that we're doing is working.
So again, looking at what the measuring what matters and some of the requirements that have recently been added to our charge include that on or before June 30th of each year, that the commission will submit a written report regarding recommendations, which includes the eliminating or amending reporting requirements. We are very fortunate to have several legislators that serve on this subcommittee as well that could also help to clarify some of the intent regarding that language, and we're really grateful for that opportunity. As I mentioned earlier, Commissioner Steve Cannavaro has been working very hard to the Education Service Center in really what is truly a unique and a first of its kind efficiency report, which is going to help reduce some of the burdensome reporting requirements that we know plague our superintendents across our state. We're also very fortunate to have State Superintendent Victor Wakefield as a part of this commission as well, where he works hand in hand, day in and day out with those superintendents. And he shared at our last meeting just last week how the frustration of our superintendents with the onerous and large volume of reporting impacts their day-to-day world. So in our practical and near-term recommendations, we will be looking at the report that, as I mentioned, was just released yesterday, working very cohesively with the subcommittee and bringing it forward to our full commission as well as we vet through recommendations that can be brought forward to the legislature regarding some of the reporting. What we're also very grateful for is the opportunity to, again, to have the state superintendent as part of our commission and the ways, and he can share the ways that he is working with state superintendent or superintendents across our state to remove some of that burden in the short term as well. The next committee that we want to highlight is our Next Generation Career Pathways Subcommittee, and a recommendation that will be coming forward in our next report. And this is a very exciting recommendation, at least, from someone who's been in higher education and recognizing that the opportunity for students as they come into post-secondary education to explore career pathways has really waned a significant amount due to financial aid funding and other programmatic elements. And so what this recommendation, which is coming from our Next Generation Subcommittee, has been working to do is to articulate the opportunity for a flexible delivery model that looks at career exploration, course equivalencies and advisories, and engaging at the middle school level. Now, this is not to say that students now need to figure out what they're going to do for the rest of their life when they're in middle school, but at least give an opportunity for them to either have coursework or other types of career coaching, or at least to have some assessment that helps them to figure out, what am I good at and what might this look like in the way of a career. And of course, we also know that in middle school, the careers that may be there may not be there by the time they get out of high school, but at least they are able to link their skill sets with that. So the subcommittee's core recommendation is defining the student experience. And we want to also ensure that every Nevada student has an opportunity to engage in this career exploration. We have heard from our commissioners, some that serve in our very rural high schools or districts, that there's often not the same level of access for different programs. So we want to ensure that we have some form that we can fulfill a promise to those students. And again, that student experience could include a flexible delivery model, looking at courses, course equivalencies, advisory, embedding units, looking at, again, the counselor and career coach programming, looking at partner support programming, a virtual or a hybrid exposure where they can engage across our state, and other equivalent models. So what does this look like in a visual? This might look a little complex, but as you will see, the elements of this proposed guarantee for middle school career exploration would begin with an experience set. And again, that would look at their interests and their skills inventory, career clusters that exist, looking at employers throughout the community. building that body of evidence, a reflection, and as Vice Chair Parker mentioned, a portfolio kind of looking at these different career navigators, reviewing that process, and then again, being flexible in that delivery of course, advisory, or however each of the schools can stand that up to support each of those middle schools. And so again, this is not that this is their only chance to have an opportunity to select a career pathway, but it is one that they could engage in. So our next recommendation, again, for that middle school career exploration is to walk through the sequence across our state to make sure that there is a guarantee. This is how the recommendation would occur, through guidance and tools first. The authority clarification is second, with a codification and proof building in the final phase. And so note that phase 2 and 3 are specific authorization pathways. And again, this is building into that next level of progression.
And the third of our subcommittees was on world-class teaching and learning. And so when it comes to world-class teaching and learning, we want to make sure that every Nevada student is learning in an engaging, challenging, and rigorous personalized environment where they move forward when they are ready and demonstrate what they know in meaningful ways. We want to make sure that every Nevada student graduates prepared for the future that they choose. And note, this is, again, what we're going to see is a promising approach to pilot to make sure that this is feasible. It is not synonymous. We are not putting out forth a recommendation that personalized competency-based learning is our definition of what effective teaching and learning is, but rather a promising approach that we want to test and pilot. So how are we going to test and pilot it? Make sure that there is coherence with the way that the state is approaching education. We want to make sure that there's implementation quality. And then what our work really is in the World Class Teaching and Leading Subcommittee in partnership with SB4 is to make sure that we have the approach to build capacity. None of this works without amazing educators, administrators, and everybody between. You need the support staff on board. You need everybody, every adult in that building to be on board to approaches so that we get our students on board to that world-class learning approach. We will help develop, our committee is dedicated to making sure that we're building the field-facing tools as well, and that we're creating learning loops to provide the feedback to make sure that this is effective. So our near-term recommendations are as follows: to field test the developed tools that we just spoke of, and continue to establish clarity around what we're talking about when we're talking about learner-centered and competency-based education. It is a confusing minefield of terminology. And as we are noting, even when we look at the Commission on School Funding is being asked to fund competency-based education, and it is difficult when there's so many different definitions of that around. And so Nevada still needs to do work to get to a coherent definition to make sure that we are producing something that we care about here in Nevada. So we must coordinate with the Commission on School Funding where appropriate to figure out what that funding can look like. In the 84th session and beyond, we may think that there could be some of those shalls, mays, musts to think about what regulatory definition is needed as we move forward in this work to bring forward targeted recommendations only once, and I do think this is important, only once we have evidence from the field. We want to make sure that we can show and demonstrate that this is actually having a positive impact on students before we're recommending any policy changes.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And so with that, that completes our presentation for today. We would be welcome to any questions that you might have. And again, really want to again thank this body for your support of the Commission on Innovation and Excellence in Education and the work that we are doing across the different commissions supporting our students across Nevada. Thank you so much, Chair Taylor.
Thank you, Chair Charlton and Vice Chair Sean. Just wanted to thank you and the commissioners for the work. This work has been going on been ongoing for a couple of years now, and so the foundation, as Vice Chair Parker spoke about, really was not just what's happening here in our state, but the intention to not ignore what's happening in our state, but really look far and beyond to see what's happening in other parts of the world. I was wondering, as we look to see if any committee members have any questions on our end, can you talk just a little bit, either Chair or Vice Chair, about the makeup of the commission for those who may not be aware?
Certainly. Thank you, Patty Charlton, for the record, Chair of the CIEE. Thank you, Senator Taylor, Chair. As Vice Chair Parker had mentioned, there are, this is a very large and comprehensive commission that includes legislators, both senators as well as assembly members, educators throughout our state, which includes actually the chair of the state superintendent's group. One of the commissioners is actually our state superintendent, business leaders. It also includes representatives from our higher education body as well, parents. And so I don't even have the roster in front of me, and I don't know if State Superintendent Wakefield might have that information off the top of his head, but it is a very large and robust commission, including, again, parents, educators, higher ed, not just the chancellor's office, but also education leaders from each of our universities is also represented in that body as well.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I wasn't expecting the roster at all. Just what you did was appropriate, just to kind of give an idea of, for those who may not be aware. I know it isn't a new commission, but we do have a couple of new people on this interim committee. I think you mentioned students, but in case you didn't, we want to make sure that we share that voice that voice is also being heard, and the students are actually doing a great job.
Yeah, and Senator Taylor, if I could just, again, Patty Charlton for the record, there are youth legislators that are participating, and we are so grateful for their participation and engagement in that process. And then also, all of our meetings are open to the public, and we encourage robust communication both ways across the state. And then one of the things that the commission has done over the last several years has also been to ensure that we're getting the voices and we're running different ideas through. I think the Portrait of a Learner was a fine example of outreach and engagement across our communities.
Thank you so much. Again, just for the information of all the interim committee members, wanted to make sure that they had a view of just how broad this work has been, and the folks that have been included, voices that have been included. Assemblymember LaRue Hatch, you have a question?
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for the clear amount of work that has gone into this document. I've already clicked on many of the links on here and started reading through the 100 pages of reports you put. So I appreciate it. As someone that loves research, this is great. My question, though, is I notice that there are some recommendations on changing seat time, and I have concerns because we have talked about chronic absenteeism. We've talked about kids not going to school. I just finished up finals last week, and I had a number of kids that said, well, I don't need to come to your class because I can make it up in one day on the computer. And I think that's something that we are seeing more and more. And so I wondered if you could speak to how we can ensure kids are going to school if at the same time we're telling them you don't have to go to school.
Assemblymember LaRue Hatch, Sean Parker for the record. Thank you so much for the question. I would say that it is very likely that the commission will not put forth a recommendation to completely turn off the light switch on seat time, but rather to pilot as possible to make sure that we are actually addressing what you were talking about. I already know because there is already some legislative permission to work around the Carnegie unit in seat time. I know that there are some schools that are already piloting some things and have seen exactly what you're saying, that if you disrupt it too much, you actually lose student attention, engagement, attendance. And so there are some schools who have been proactively planning around that. I know of one school, for example, that is moving to a 9-week window where in that 9 weeks, they have 8 weeks where they have to demonstrate that they're showing up on time, doing the work and proficient in the work. And then the 9th week is now an exploration in partnership with community-based organizations and businesses where young people can actually go have real world learning experiences. And that amount of flexibility of seat time is what is enabled there, but that is different than abolishing seat time requirements and demonstrating just proficiency. And so I think that's when we say that there needs to be pilots for these before we make the final recommendations for law. And then ultimately, again, it would still be up to the school districts because of the implementation there. I don't think we're going to mandate overnight that we get rid of seat time.
Well, thank you so much for assuaging that concern. I think that makes a lot of sense to try to ground it in reality, and I appreciate that approach.
Thank you, Assembly Member. I don't see other questions from other committee members. I want to thank you and applaud you. Applaud your leadership, applaud your work of this commission from the very beginning. It was always going to be, this is a long-term project, right? To really be able to thoroughly identify those things that can really help change some of the landscape as necessary, right? Holding on to those things that have really been foundational, been helpful, and to just move us forward educationally in the public education in the state. So thanks so much to the both of you. Again, tremendous appreciation to our first chair, Chair Woodhouse, for beginning to lead the way, and we're going to continue that work in her name. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Senator Don Darrell Loop, I believe this was your legislation, so thank you as well for laying this groundwork. Okay, we will continue on with the agenda, and this is agenda item 7, presentation on the work of the Subcommittee on Accountability Redesign, including updates on the design and development of Nevada's district performance framework, which we actually mentioned a little bit earlier, and the Nevada School Performance Framework. That's what we mentioned before us. We have our state superintendent, Dr. Wakefield, and as well as former assembly member and current Clark County School District trustee, and also who is a member of the subcommittee on accountability and redesign, Irene Bustamante and Adams. Thanks both of you for being here, and the floor is yours for your 15 minutes. Go forward.
Thank you. Thank you. I had a good morning / afternoon in my notes because I didn't know how far item 7 would go, but I think it's still morning, right?
Apology
Impressive
accepted.
work.
Apology accepted.
And then just checking to make sure that my materials are coming through. We should have slides sharing.
Yes, we have them.
Wonderful. So I'll say good morning, Chair Taylor and committee. My name is Victor Wakefield, State Superintendent. I'm joined by a member of our metrics subcommittee, Irene Bustamante Adams. Irene is a trustee for the Clark County School District, the president of the Nevada Association of School Boards. We also have Peter Zutz, director for the Office of Assessment, Data, and Accountability Management from NDE, available should you have any more technical or detailed questions. You asked us to overview the metrics subcommittee for accountability redesign, and share an update on its activities and any challenges and policy considerations emerging from the work. So today we'll share where we're at, what we're learning, and where we may need your partnership moving forward. So this work sits at the intersection of several department priorities. We have our vision on the left side and our 5 priorities on the right. It advances aligned systems by creating greater coherence. It supports informed and connected families by increasing transparency and accessibility. Most importantly, the purpose of accountability is to help ensure students are thriving and receiving the strong foundations, empowering pathways, and excellent teaching that they deserve. Senate Bill 460 asked Nevada to rethink accountability, not simply to update measures, but to redesign how we define success and support improvement. The legislation directed NDE to develop a district performance framework, refine the school performance framework, streamline reporting requirements, and strengthen alignment between accountability and support. To support this important and ambitious work, we at NDE created an advisory group, the Metrics Subcommittee on Accountability Redesign. You can thank my predecessor, Dr. Canavero, for the name. And we, like acronyms, of course, in education, we've been calling this group SAR, S-A-R. So you might hear it referred to as the SAR as I move forward here. The work of the SAR is scoped into 2 phases. Phase 1 focuses on developing recommendations for a pilot district performance framework and defining effective district practices. Phase 2 will refine both the district performance framework that we will have piloted and created through phase 1, but also to make some long overdue revisions to the school performance framework as well. Throughout the process, meetings, materials, and updates have all been publicly available to ensure transparency and stakeholder engagement. We intentionally designed the subcommittee to reflect Nevada's education ecosystem. Members include trustees, superintendents, educators, business representatives, parents, community members, and students. At NDE, we believe that we are in this together, and achieving shared success requires all of these perspectives around the table. At this point, I'd like to invite NASB President, CCSD Trustee, and SAR member, Irene Bustamante Adams, to share a few reflections from the perspective of serving on this committee and sharing her local governance perspective, especially from the NASB, Nevada Association of School Boards perspective. Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you, Superintendent Wickfield, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Irene Bustamante Adams, and I have the privilege, like the superintendent said, to serve as the president for this year for NASB, but also get to serve on the subcommittee. For many years, Nevada has discussed how to improve student outcomes and how to create an accountability system that is meaningful, transparent, and actionable. So this bill, Senate 460, that you guys passed last legislative session, provides an opportunity to take a fresh look at that work. And here's the important question that you guys asked. What should an effective school district look like? And how do we measure progress towards that goal? One of the things that I appreciate most about this group is the diversity of the perspectives represented at the table. And the superintendent just shared who is at the table. And it includes the trustees, the superintendents, educators, business leaders, community representatives, parents, charter school leaders, and student voice. And that's what makes this committee's work even stronger, because it's the diversity and ensures that no single perspective drives the framework, but instead it's inclusive. So we are building something that reflects the need of Nevada students and communities. And the membership is intentional. Like, we are intentional to make sure that the voices that this bill that you pass is reflected in the educational ecosystem. From this perspective of local school boards, accountability matters. And I know that, and I've been listening to the hearing all morning, and I understand that. I realize the responsibility that we have. And it's to provide an opportunity to provide a new approach on accountability in this state. Trustees have the responsibility to align the resources that you give us to student outcomes, and the community needs to have access. So make sure that as a parent, that the information is clear, that it's transparent, and that they know how to identify how the school is performing and also how the district is performing. While we appreciate the progress that has been made in reducing duplicative rep reports and reporting burdens, you heard earlier from several of the other presentations the overburden of on a district for accountability requirements. So I'm not going to repeat that, because I think that it is very clear that SB 460, the intentionality that you guys had as a body was to streamline that reporting, and I think that we are headed in that direction. We're going to ask districts to provide clear information about the outcomes that matter most through a meaningful district performance framework. And if we do that, we need to be conscious of reducing the duplicative reporting requirements and focus on what matters, because I've heard it from you. Support excellent teaching and learning for the students. Ultimately, accountability should not simply identify the problems, it should help drive improvement and support better outcomes for students. I also have the privilege of serving as the Vice President of the Clark County School Board, but I'm speaking today as an individual and not a representative of the full board. But I can tell you that Superintendent Ebert and I have had conversations about how to refine the district and school performance framework to better reflect on the hard work of our educators. We are excited that our CCSD liaison, Christopher Huffman, will also be advocating for some of those proposed changes as a new member of the subcommittee for the school accountability reform. So just in closing, on behalf of NASB, this is our second time in front of you, and I can just speak to the testimony of being included at the table, all the school districts, and just want to express my gratitude for that. And we appreciate the collaborative and thoughtful process that has been used in this subcommittee that you guys have created. And we look forward to continuing the work as we build the framework together that serve students, families, educators, and communities across Nevada.
Thank you so much, President/Vice President Bustamante Adams for NASB and for Clark County. So now I'm going to move from framing up the committee's work to a little bit of a preview of where we're going with our direction. This might be the most important slide today that I share. We are orienting to this work differently than accountability has too often been experienced in the past in Nevada. We are taking note also of the playbook from other states that have made progress around student outcomes. Accountability cannot simply be punitive or compliance driven if our goal is improvement. I believe accountability is about ensuring success of our system and keeping our promises to students, families, and communities. This means defining what strong districts do, providing information people can actively use, and aligning support when challenges emerge. The goal is to focus on the right points of accountability, system, school, student success, and streamline efforts and do fewer things better. The emerging district performance framework is grounded in a simple question. What do effective districts consistently do well? The SAR developed our effective district practices, you can see this table on our slide, to provide that foundation. It identifies the systems, conditions, and practices associated with successful districts and shifts the conversation from isolated compliance activities to overall district effectiveness. The fiscal/spending conversation earlier today is aligned with the bottom row of our table here, resources and financial stewardship. Our vision is to unify district planning submissions in future years around these research-backed practices. The district performance framework then brings together indicators that provide a holistic picture of district performance. So building on the base of effective district practices, which you can see below the pyramid, the current design is to measure district indicators, so things like staffing levels, fiscal responsibility, instructional program availability, also school level success, which is the middle row, and then student outcomes. And together, those three sections will become the components of the proposed district performance framework. It's intended to be actionable for district leaders, understandable to trustees and families, and useful to the state in targeting support. The goal is not to reduce districts to a single number, but to provide meaningful information that can drive improvement. We're hard at work at turning this conceptual design into a pilot framework that can be released in August, run for 1 year concurrently with ACing accountability, and then be refined and implemented as the state's district performance framework. In terms of policy considerations, through our work together, a few themes have consistently emerged. So just to highlight a couple of them. First, we must partner with districts to streamline and consolidate planning and reporting requirements. You've heard that reframed 3 or 4 times today. Second, we need to strengthen the coordination and delivery of state level supports in identified areas of need. We want to use the available information to actually drive more streamlined and effective supports. We also want to continue investing in systems that support efficient, high quality data collection and reporting. And none of these recommendations lower expectations. Rather, they help ensure that accountability is focused, fair, and most importantly, useful to improvement. Okay, so Chair Taylor, members of the committee, this work represents an opportunity to redefine accountability as a tool for success rather than simply for compliance. If we can provide clearer information about the outcomes that matter most while reducing duplication and better aligning support, we believe Nevada can build an accountability system that better serves students, families, educators, and communities. Thank you. We would be happy to answer any questions. And that probably would be for me or for Peter Zutz, who's at the table up north for technical questions, or of course, we'd welcome our member of our committee as well to share if relevant.
Well, thank you so much for the presentation and for the work. Thank you, Superintendent Wakefield, and thank you. I'm not sure which title to use. So we can say President, Vice President, Trustee, formerly Assembly Member, Bustamante Adams, and all of those and whatever else I may be missing. Thank you so much for the presentation. There are some questions, and we will start with Assemblymember LaRue Hatch.
Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you for the presentation again. I have a couple questions. The first of which I think you answered a little bit, that this is conceptual, right? Because I wanted a lot more detail, but I understand that it's still in progress. So my question that goes along with this, if we are releasing this in August and piloting it for a year, who's participating in that pilot, and how are districts able to prepare for this new way of evaluating them if they're just now seeing it in August?
Great. Superintendent Wakefield, for the record. This is why the SARS engagement has been so transparent, and we've had multiple district leaders and trustees as part of that. It's also why I've spent 3 meetings and counting with the NAS group, the Nevada Association of School Superintendents, to get input, to preview, to share where this is going directionally. And then secondly, once the idea of this being an initial pilot, that is because the SAR will continue to meet for the whole next year to see if it is actually having the intended impact. So that's why we're running this concurrently alongside of the AC and accountability, which is also district performance information, which is currently happening in our state. In terms of what I'll do briefly, if my slides are still showing, is if you're hungry for a little bit more of that substance, number one, you certainly have access to the hours and hours of meetings, recordings, the draft frameworks, because everything we're doing in the subcommittee is available on NDE's boards, commissions, councils page with agendas, with the supportive materials and recordings. So we're trying to do this all as transparently as humanly possible as we have a tight timeline to that work. And then I'll just recap what I put on the record already, which is that the district supports row will be indicators that reflect the effective practices of districts. The school outcomes will use the data and information that is from the NSPF, from the Nevada School Performance Framework, and create roll-ups of information that is about the district as a whole related to the school outcomes. And then the student outcomes are related to academic progress for student groups. That is dictated by the legislation to have performance targets that are also by groups. And then what we're doing this summer on the student outcomes level is the state board is doing goal setting, NDE is doing our STIP planning, and we plan to have a number of student outcomes goals that we would have the states aiming at these indicators over 5 years' time, and districts would be showing progress towards those set of indicators. These are drafts, so don't get too attached to them, but the things that have been in committee for student outcomes have been things like grade 3 proficiency for reading, grade 8 proficiency for math, high school graduation rates and advanced diploma types, and then also district choice. So actually giving the space for some district selection of some of the student outcomes that if they believe there are other outcomes beyond the ones that I just named. So I'm happy to go deeper. I also have the set of indicators that are included in the NSPF, if that's useful for you on the record. That's all also available broadly through all of NDE's materials. And then I'll find out as well if my colleague wants to share any thoughts too. Irene?
Yes, thank you. For the record, Irene Bustamante Adams. And I would just like to add that from a NASB perspective, we have invited the superintendent to come and address the entire group of board of directors. And so that will continue so that the information is infiltrating down to all the trustees. And so we could do more in addition to what the assembly member asked to make sure that we're intentional so that the districts understand how to prepare. And so I, as a trustee for Clark County, need to make sure that my president understands and we educate the entire team of what is coming down the pipeline.
Thank you so much for that. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I appreciate the multiple metrics. As a high school teacher, I know when graduation rates are the only metric, that just means principals force us to pass everybody so they look good, right? I think that multiple metrics is super important, and I appreciate that. My follow-up question is, you mentioned one of the domains is education and leaders, where we need to recruit, develop, support, and retain qualified educators, and I really appreciate that. That's fundamental to what we're doing. My question is, how are you incorporating educator voice into that metric, and how are we looking at retention rates? I know, for instance, I've been at schools that have 50 or even 75% of the staff turnover because of a single principal that's driving people away. I've talked to people in the district that feel like my voice is not heard, that's why I'm not staying. So how are we incorporating those metrics to ensure we're retaining those high quality educators?
Victor Wakefield, for the record. So the current candidate indicator for qualified educators in classrooms, which is the committee's way to try to define that row, right, of the district effective district practices, is as follows. Coverage rate, percentage of classrooms taught by a licensed educator in the endorsed area, or an increase in coverage rate. So it might be an example where you want to both recognize great work at the absolute scale, but also the district's making progress. They have fewer vacancies than before. That could be considered in that indicator. We also have heard and decided so far as a committee to focus on the percentage of vacancies at Title I schools compared to non-Title I schools to make sure that you don't end up in a world where a district is trying to score high, but they aren't also attending to the schools that are historically hardest to staff. So that is just off of my cheat sheet from our committee work as to where that indicator is currently as we're considering it. You asked a really good question around educator voice, and so I'm jotting that down to see if that's something that we could bring back into our meeting as a SAR, which is in 2 weeks' time. But to your point, there are multiple indicators that matter deeply, and I think if you look at the effective district practices framework, and I feel like I might be risking getting too technical here, so I'm going to be careful of that. I know this isn't a working group meeting, this is a legislative presentation. But I do believe that, the actual student well-being or the culture and climate of our districts are also deeply part of this effective district practices, as you alluded to. That is super important. And so I've taken note of what you've asked. And I also would just say conceptually, districts might find that, okay, the district framework is helpful to give me some high level data. We might actually have to go explore and unpack what are the drivers behind our data points. So it's also not an end all be all, right? This is a performance framework that is going to be full of good information that's research backed. But districts will also, of course, have to do that really good work of unpacking and analyzing the data, having a strategic plan aligned to this. But I just want to compliment you on the question, because that might be more in the details of what a district or school is asking themselves more qualitatively, whereas this might provide more of the quantitative information that we can actually measure at a state level.
Thank you, Assembly Member. We're going to go down south. Senator Rogich, believe you have a question.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, it was answered.
Oh,
by
that's
the
right. It was
superintendent.
answered.
Thank you.
The staff slipped me a note and I missed it. Thank you so much. Glad it was answered. I do have a couple of questions just while we are here. This is for you, Superintendent Wakefield. First of all, I just want to start by saying thank you for looking at the framework from more of isn't a punitive standpoint, but there's so much more to it. Even back, put my school board hat back on. That was always a concern and valid, certainly valid. So thank you for that, because we want it to be something that helps and that encourages and that strengthens and allows educators to be developed, as opposed to something they feel like is a hammer. So I really applaud you, Dr. Wakefield, as well as the committee for doing that. In that vein, a couple of questions. You mentioned, Dr. Wakefield, that there are indicators that you're using for each of those. If there is a way that we can get a copy of those, just informationally, I know it's a pilot, and so things may still do some shifting as you learn and evaluate along the way, but it'd be great to have just a look at those things that are there. That would be helpful. If you can get that to staff, and then that can be sent to the committee, that would be helpful. And then I wanted, Superintendent Wakefield, because you've done so much work in this, and you and I have had a couple of conversations as well, what else should the committee know about this pilot and you're going forward? So as we look forward to results and reporting back, is there anything missing? Anything that hasn't come out? What else should we know? Do you think it's important?
Victor Wakefield for the record. So yes to sending the candidate indicators. I'll work with your team, because we may want to have our very next business meeting to give, because if we're meeting a couple days later and might have an updated list, we'll send you what we have, and then you can determine, if you want to wait 2 days to get the latest and greatest, because we're meeting in real time as a SAR.
We're waiting 2 days. I will determine. We'll wait for 2 days.
Okay, perfect.
And get the updated list. Yes.
At the end of the month, so we will give you that right in the wake of our June meeting for SAR. Thank you for
Mm-hmm.
that
Thank you.
clarity.
Mm-hmm.
And then to your question, I wouldn't say that anything of substance is missing from what we've put forward, but I do think that we can sometimes lose the forest from the trees in these conversations and get too technical. And so I just want to reiterate a theme that brings together maybe multiple presentations from today and my presentation in brief. So SB 460 has many different components. I've made jokes about the length of it being the length of the Great Gatsby as a bill before. I won't do that again. But there's two things I want to say to me have to work hand in hand. One is this idea of streamlining reporting. Every report that has been put and requested of schools or NDE was put there for a really good reason, right? So, that's something that's really important for us to contend with. In my opinion, and what I need to do, feeling deeply responsible for the success of our whole state and our whole education system, is that as we streamline and determine, yep, that was duplicative or that is outdated, is that we have to point to our accountability systems towards the right things, toward the actual metrics, outcomes that matter most. And to me personally, to speak personally, and also from our committee's work, that's the success of our students, the success of our school portfolios, right, across our districts, the success of every school, and then the success of the districts as a whole. Charter authorizers, you can do the same sort of back mapping as well from what I just shared. And so I think it's just so important to name very clearly that these two things have to work together. We're not, we have to do fewer things better, be streamlined, but we need to keep our eye on the most important things. So when I hear about fiscal spending or resourcing things, that's why it's so clearly in our framework. When I hear about student outcomes or about excellent teaching and learning, that's why it's so clearly in our framework. And so I think that my conversations with districts, superintendents has been very clear about this, but I want it to be very clear here as well, is that to me, it's that those two things have to go hand in hand. We're not just streamlining or cutting reports to do it. We're doing it because we want to focus attention where it matters most, which is around excellent teaching and learning. And we're going to know if we're doing that in part by this framework that we're building together. And it's going to be, I think, such a complement to our system to have good information. And it'll also help us have those early warning indicators. So if you think about an analogy we've had in our committee as a check engine light before, and before you see a district that has a real financial challenge, before you see a board of trustees that is not meeting and has a real governance challenge, or before we see outcomes for students that are truly not living up to our promise, we want to kind of know that in advance, have indicators, have a framework that helps us see that so that we can have a better collective conversation. And so this is, I believe, in the service of accountability where it matters most, which is local, and also at the level of the state, and we're all in this together, especially our legislature. So I would say, I just would offer that as kind of a reminder of some of the themes that I've tried to share today.
I appreciate that, Mr. Superintendent. And I think we're all in favor of doing less so that we're doing the important things better and really focusing on our students, what matters most. And excellent teaching and learning. The single most important thing that happens in the school district is instruction. So excellent teaching and learning. So seeing no further questions from any committee members, then we will thank you again. And Mr. Zutt, thank you for coming and being available. In case we needed to call upon you, we appreciate you. Get off the hook this time, but we appreciate you being available and being here. And thanks so much to the two of you down south. Okay, we'll continue on our agenda. This is agenda item number 8, presentation on strengthening the kindergarten through 8th grade foundation in mathematics instruction for students in Nevada. This presentation is coming forward as an opportunity to take a look at. We talk so much about literacy, which is critically important, and certainly the mathematics component is important as well. So the presenters, Tamara Shear, Patricia Haddock-Bennett, and Elena Kreiner-Wilson, please come. Oh, you're already there. Good job, ladies. Thank you so much, and we will turn it over to you when you are ready.
I also still get to say good morning. So good job, committee. So good morning, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Torres Fawcett, and members of the Intermed Committee. My name is Tam Shear, and I'm the CEO of Opportunity 180. I'm joined by my colleagues, Patricia Haddock-Bennett, who leads our policy and advocacy work, and CCSD Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Elena Kreiner-Wilson. As a first-gen college student and former middle school and high school math teacher, I'm excited to be here today talking about math. This is my first time in front of this committee, and Opportunity 180's first time under my leadership in front of this committee. And so I'd like to take less than 30 seconds to tell you about Opportunity 180. Opportunity 180 works towards the North Star of every kid graduating high school, college, and career ready, prepared to live the life they dream. We do that by raising federal and philanthropic funds, developing strong local and national partnerships, having a high bar and unwavering belief in the potential of our kids, and investing those funds we raise into Nevada education initiatives that are evidence-based, backed by national research, and lead to a stronger education ecosystem, as evidenced by 100,000 more kids in high-quality public schools. Prior to joining Opportunity 180, I was privileged to work across Nevada supporting pre-K through 12th grade teachers, administrators, and superintendents implementing high-quality instructional strategies through Teach for America, TNTP, and Achievement Network. I'm honored and grateful to be before you today discussing what I believe is an urgent topic, making sure every student builds a strong foundation in math.
I'm going to jump in. Do we have our slides available? We do. Thank you so much.
Can you see them? Great.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you. So like reading, math is foundational. Math fluency is built over time and depends on mastering critical skills early and in sequence. Research shows math is one of the strongest predictors we have for graduation, post-secondary success, entry into high-demand careers, and lifetime earnings. Yet, as you can see on the screen, we are facing a math crisis. Nationally, fewer than 3 in 10 eighth graders are proficient. Research shows strong math instruction builds confidence and agency. It teaches students reasoning, persistence, informed decision-making, and problem-solving. As Nevada continues to invest in advanced manufacturing, clean energy, technology, and healthcare, those industries need people who are ready to analyze information, interpret data, and reason through problems. Employers consistently rank quantitative problem solving among the most important workforce skills. Addressing this is essential to preparing students for a prosperous future. So why now? We rightly treat literacy as a foundation of learning, and numeracy is just as important. Nevada has built real momentum with the science of reading, in large part due to many of the members of this committee. There's now growing national evidence in math that points to what works. Explicit evidence-based instruction, cumulative skill building, and a focus on both conceptual understanding and fluency. And based on a representative poll from March, strengthening math is a unifying goal that reflects what families and the public value. It's why it's critical to act now. And I'll turn it over to my colleague, Patricia Haddad-Bennett, to share a little data.
Thank you. Good morning. Patricia Haddad-Bennett, Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy for Opportunity 180. As Tam mentioned, a little bit of data for you, and here's where Nevada stands. In 2025, 41% of elementary school students, 30% of middle schoolers, and just 21% of high schoolers tested as proficient in math. And notice the trajectory. Kids are not getting better as they move up. Unfortunately, they are sliding further behind. And proficiency, as you can see, drops by half from elementary to high school. And this indicates that the education system needs more resources to catch students earlier so that gaps don't compound over time. And so the takeaway is that for better outcomes in high school and beyond, it's critical to strengthen the K-8 foundations. What you see here is an outline of Nevada math proficiency by grade band from 2016 through 2024-25. If you turn your attention specifically to the 2018-2019 school year, just before the pandemic, and then look at our most recent year's worth of data, you can see that Nevada students are on track to reach those pre-pandemic student proficiency levels. And this is heartening and an indication of the great progress and investment that this body, the state, districts, and educators are doing to get kids on track. And we, of course, still have more work to do. Here, you've got a bit of a deeper look. So when we look at how the student proficiency breaks down by student group. Specifically, this is elementary school and middle school. We can see that overall trends are certainly moving in the right direction. However, gaps still exist between student groups. And so you're looking at math pooled proficiency by student group, elementary and middle, as I mentioned. At the top line there, the gray line you'll see is Asian students, which are coming in at about 65% proficient. At the bottom, just 13% of students with disabilities as proficient, which is a 52-point gap. Only about 1 in 5 Black students and 1 in 5 American, Indian, Alaska Native students are reaching proficiency, and economically disadvantaged students trail the statewide average. So unfortunately, these gaps have been persistent and they don't close on their own, as I'm sure you know. And so a strong K-8 policy framework is how we change this, catching needs early and giving every student access to high quality instruction. But there's good news. The state and the districts have already identified math proficiency as a high leverage strategic priority. And so this conversation is about building on the real momentum that's already here. At the state level, Superintendent Wakefield's Strong Foundations priority commits Nevada to high quality evidence-based instruction and materials. SB 460 gave us the model in 2025 for science of reading for K-3 and teacher apprenticeship pipelines for high need subjects like math. And I'm now going to turn it over to Alana Kreiner-Wilson to discuss CCSD's exciting progress in this area as well.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Taylor, Vice Chair Torres Fawcett, and members of the Interim Education Committee. Elena Kreiner-Wilson, Assistant Superintendent of the Curriculum and Instruction Division in the Clark County School District. During the 2025-2026 school year, as part of its bridge work to the strategic plan, the Clark County School District made middle school mathematics one of its core 4 priorities, focusing on the root causes and critical areas that directly impact student achievement and instructional effectiveness. We know that middle school mathematics is a predictor of high school graduation and post-secondary workforce success. When we look at mathematics as a system, it's important to understand how math is highly sequential in nature, where each year of instruction builds on the prior year of knowledge. Therefore, we prioritized and identified targeted actions focused on leadership and systemic support, teacher professional knowledge and instructional practice, and curriculum assessment and grading alignment to create a more coherent and effective mathematics program. Additionally, the new state-funded CCSD NDE feeder pilot is adding mathematics strategists and small group instruction explicitly designed to be replicated. In May of 2026, CCSD released its 5-year Destination District Strategic Plan with bold action to work together with our educators, students, family, and communities to have a 50% increase in mathematics proficiency in grades 3 through 8 by the year 2031. The strategies outlined in the Destination District Strategic Plan continue the work of the Core 4 bridge work and emphasize academic excellence, where the priority in mathematics is to ensure our children are confident mathematical thinkers and problem solvers ready for the future.
Patricia Haddad-Bennett, Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy for Opportunity 180. Thank you, Ms. Kreiner-Wilson. And these are fantastic, necessary efforts that need connective tissue to reach every student in Nevada. And we're so grateful to Superintendent Ebert and all of the superintendents across the state for their commitment to this work as well. And so our intent is to discuss statewide strategies that essentially do 3 things: scale what works to every K-8 student statewide, speeds up the timeline so students aren't waiting years for best practices to reach them, and increase impact by aligning materials, coaching, and intervention so that these efforts reinforce each other instead of being duplicative. So what does this national framework look like? A coherent framework that provides tools and supports for educators is really the bottom line. Students can learn, but we need system coherence and investment. Research has identified 3 evidence-based pillars for states to successfully get on track in math. First, high-quality instructional materials, which you've heard a lot about. Rigorous, evidence-aligned curricula from a state-vetted list. That's the foundation for strong first instruction in every classroom. Second is support for educators, specialized professional learning for all K-8 math teachers, plus job-embedded coaching with support by specialists and building leaders. And third, screening, intervention, and progress monitoring so we can identify needs early and act on them. And to be clear, this is all in service of giving educators the tools and support they need to support students. So that was a little bit about the what, and here this digs in a little bit more and what each pillar actually requires. So on the materials piece, that high quality instructional materials component, the department would establish a review process for districts to engage with. Then materials would be evaluated on standards alignment, coherent learning trajectories, explicit instruction, embedded intervention materials, and of course, what some of those vendor-led professional development opportunities may look like as well. For on part 2 there, for educators, professional learning for everyone who leads, coaches, or teaches K-8 math. Job embedded coaching, demonstrated lessons, co-teaching, and feedback with teachers using assessment data to guide instruction. And then the third component there on students, for any student who needs help gets an individual math improvement plan, targeted intervention, continuous progress monitoring, and critically, with families as being a part of that plan.
Tam Shear, CEO of Opportunity 180, for the record. So what comes next? Our commitment is to be a resource to this body if you identify improving math outcomes for students as a priority. As with any policy we support, it's our aim to support state and local efforts, track national trends as a model for a policy framework that will work in Nevada, and be a resource to each of you as we drive toward a North Star of every kid in Nevada graduating from high school, college, and career ready, prepared to live the life they dream. We also want to leave you with some questions that you can consider as you contemplate and, most importantly, lead our state towards stronger outcomes. And so with that, we have an annual North Star Summit in August where we'll be bringing together national experts and local leaders and experts to continue this conversation. We'd welcome this body and your colleagues to join us there. Thank you again for your time. We look forward to continuing this conversation, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much to the three of you for being here and sharing this information on math, again, in the light, if you will, or shadow, you can even say that, of such the conversation on literacy, the numeracy matters as well. I'll look to my colleagues for any questions that anyone may have. As a result, I think you've made, no questions, I think you've made the point very clear that there's something for us to pay attention to as well, and not forget about the math piece of this as we look forward to, if we look to moving education forward. It's either that, or you're the only thing standing between us and lunch and the end of the meeting. I'm not quite sure. Could be all of that as well. But this is really, thank you for taking, I know I asked you to come in, so thank you so much for taking the time to come in and sharing this with us. There's certainly some work to do. We do have a question from a committee member. Senator Rogich, I believe you have a question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. So am I understanding correctly, based on the data that you're referencing, there's not currently a sufficient amount of math teachers or quality materials in place?
Thank you. Patricia Haddad Bennett, Senior Director of Policy and Advocacy for Opportunity 180. I think when we're looking at the data, we see that there is room for improvement, and whether that is ensuring that educators, folks that are on the ground, that are teaching math in classrooms, have the adequate supports that they need, and the continuous improvement supports that they may need as well, to be able to not only get kids caught up, but keep them on track as well.
Chair, I have a follow-up.
Can I respond to that as well?
Oh, yes,
Oh,
please.
great. Thank you. Thank you, Senator Rogers, for the question. We also, we believe that while there are some high quality instructional materials in place, there is room to support educators in understanding how to implement those effectively. And so we're in the process of working on an audit to make sure we're working with local and state partners on what is the high quality instructional materials in place and how well do teachers know how to implement those currently. And that audit will then give us more information to answer your question exactly.
So if there's already existing programs in place that have received certain funding, when you're discovering that those programs are not working or they're failing the children, is the money going to be reallocated from those programs to what you're doing or would like to do?
Tam Shear, CEO of Opportunity 180. I think that's up to this legislative body. We want to support and partner with you all as well as local and state leaders to make the best decision based on what will lead our students to stronger outcomes.
And then just one more question. With regard to the high schoolers, you indicate that there's just 21%. What happens to them? Because I understand this is a pilot. And so how do you get them up to speed considering there's just a small time frame left in high school?
That's a great question, Patricia Haddad Bennett. So high school is critical, as you know, and we can see that through the scores as well. And if that is something that the legislature chooses to take on and wrap into those priorities, we'd be happy to support and find the national research, the local information to be able to weave that in and braid that in. I think our focus was on the early foundations so that we can ensure that kids are getting that strong foundational understanding so that they can have more success when they get into those high school grades. But certainly, like you said, high school is critical.
Senator Rogich, you follow up or you're good?
Oh, no, I'm good. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, all right. And then just for clarity, this isn't a pilot. That was the previous presentation. This is really informative in terms of where we are currently in terms of math proficiency, and then some recommendations for on best practices. How do we move that needle, and what are those things that would be required? And Opportunity 180 talking about some of the work that they've been involved in. So I don't want to leave anyone with the impression that this is a program that's being worked on. This is really to inform us of where we are, and then begin to be a part of a conversation as we are with literacy, and how do we move the needle forward in math and what that would require. So I hope that clarifies that just a little bit. So ladies, you don't have to run out and start a pilot. But we certainly appreciate this is important information and look forward to the results of the audit as well, because that will be very informative as well.
Thank you, Chair, for clarifying that.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else, committee members? Okay, seeing none.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I ask a quick question?
Please go ahead, Senator.
Sorry for the interruption. I thought about this too late. Can you please tell us what event you're talking about in August?
Thank you for the question. Tam Shear, CEO of Opportunity 180. Our annual North Star Summit is an opportunity to bring together local leaders and experts with national expertise on policy that we believe will advance our North Star. And so it's a morning event at the Discovery Children's Museum we hold every year. And we'll have a small panel of local and national experts, and then a working session where we'll use that working session to inform policy recommendations that we would have, or to report back out to this committee around what we learn, and that's August 27th.
Thank you for that question, Senator. I was actually thinking the same thing, so appreciate that. Further questions, committee members? Okay, seeing none. Again, ladies, thank you so much for bringing this forward. Thank you for the audit. We certainly look forward to that, and we'll jump in and participate in August for those of us who can. Okay, that concludes agenda item number 8. And so now we'll go to agenda item number 9. This is public comment. And again, this is a reminder for people from the public who would like to make a public comment, either in person here in Carson City, or there in Las Vegas, or you can do that by phone. And again, that number by phone is 888-475-4499, and the meeting ID 849-682-90-396, and then press the pound key and you'll receive instructions from there. So anyone would like to make public comment, you will be limited to 2 minutes. Come forward at this time here in Carson City or in Las Vegas. And don't see any in either place in person, we'll go to the phone lines. broadcast, do we have anyone waiting to make public comment?
Thank you, Chair. Our public lines are open and working. However, we have no callers for public comment at this time.
Okay, thank you so much. Our next meeting, thank you everyone. Thank you to this committee for working diligently throughout the interim so we can get to the point where we are there. We have had plenty of recommendations sent in for those who would like to share recommendations with the interim committee on BDR request. And so those will be compiled and we'll be working on those as well. So we will not have a meeting in July. Primarily because I don't want to be in here by myself, and I have the feeling I might be. But our next meeting will be our work session, our work session, and it will be on August 18th, 2026 at 9 a.m. here in Carson City. I am asking committee members to please attend the work session in person here in Carson City, August 18th, 2026 at 9 a.m. This will conclude our meeting for today. It is adjourned, and again, we thank you so much for all your work over these months, and I look forward to our work session in August. Have a great summer, everybody.